Welcome.
On you go then, Joe, since you haven't been here all week, Since you haven't been here all week, man. Come on, you do it.
Well, it is Freaky Friday. And it's wonderful to be here tonight after a very, very long week. Kev being relentlessly trolled, I hear.
Hey, woohoo!
Yeah, well, it comes with the territory, of course. But, it's good to have a wrap-up of that. Maybe get some highlights of some of the tomfoolery that happens in the world of the Kev Baker Show. But tonight, folks, we have our weekly gathering of the minds where we go through all of the freaky material that we can possibly get our hands on. The freakier, the better. The wooier.
The wooier.
Yeah. It's just
the wee-weeer.
Yes, that's exactly right. So I'm here, and we got Scotty, and we got Kev, and special treat, folks. We've got the Whistler in the house. That's right. Johnny Whistles is here with us, and it's good to have you, buddy.
Thanks, Joe. Good to be here again. Yep. The Freaky Friday has not changed. It's still as crazy as ever. So,
yeah, it does have moments for sure.
Did you expect it ever would change to be anything less crazy, Johnny?
No,
Exactly.
to be honest with you, no.
Well,
If anything,
no.
before we get before the madness ensues, and there's always madness, we know that, right? It's Freaky Friday. But on a more serious and solemn note, I want to just pass on my love and respect to the family of Rod Scarth. Now, some of you might not know,
Rod?
but Rod was a hypnotist that I was introduced to via Chris Everard. And he used to come onto the show. He would talk to us about hypnotism. He would do drone pilot stuff for Chris Everard and his amazing documentaries. But Scotty informed me just before the show today that Rod has passed away, and he leaves behind something like 7 grandchildren. So a big shout out to a former guest on the Kev Baker Show. I think he might even have been here on Freaky Friday at one point. But yes,
Yeah,
Scott,
he came on Freaky as well. Yeah.
Yes, Scotty, I was quite sad to hear that, man.
That's a shame.
Yeah, it was very sudden and very sad news. Rod would co-host with me and Christopher Everard on Sundays, and he's a great guy. He did a lot of the drone footage work for Chris, for his documentaries, and I remember he got into mining cryptocurrency because I kind of showed him about it, told him about it and stuff, and so he became a big advocate of cryptocurrency and stuff like that. So yeah, very sad news. He was a great guy, and my thoughts go out to his family and everyone out there. It
also goes to show that you never know when.
Yep.
You never know when that day is going to come, and it's unbelievable. Yet again, here's another case of Rod just being Rod, and then all of a sudden, he's not Rod anymore. Yeah, so it can happen in the blink of an eye, and it's one thing that we do quite often is we take things for granted. You take things for granted that you're going to go to sleep and wake up the next morning, and.
Oh, we got some cool music playing on Freaky Friday.
You take for granted that you might ever...
I might be Brian, but I identify as a Wookiee. Woo.
Okay. Yes, indeed. Brian is a Wookiee. And talking of Wookiees, thank you, DJ. Let me dip my toe into the original, the one and only Wookiee cave, and give all of you hardcore Freaky Friday knots a shout out. We have got Sophia the robot, Dr. Kayak, the Wookiee, Parrot. In fact, what am I doing? Johnny Whistles, are you in the chat room? This is your job when you're here.
See.
What the hell, Kev?
It didn't feel right that I'm thinking,
It didn't register with me either, just so you know.
It was feeling, this feels a bit dirty. It feels like I'm doing something I shouldn't. Johnny Whistle's there. You're adoring fans, my friend. Go and address the masses. Come on.
I will do that, Kev. It's just coming right now.
He's getting in there now.
This is in our chat, Kev, on the
TFRlive.com.
On the TFR
yes,
Live.
the Wookiee
Okay.
Cave. On you go, Johnny. Over to you,
So,
man.
I'm in there just now, Kev, and we have Dr. Kayak. We've got the Wookiee, Paradoxical Anomaly. We've got BAM. We've got Hilarious Northeast, Southeast. How you doing,
or
buddy?
Nacy.
We've got Unplugged, Mr. Joe Joseph himself. We've got Silamo. And who we got under that, Kev, if we can get down here, but this thing won't move.
Well, we have.
Here it goes. We've
got
got
it.
Gemini, sorry. We've got Bill, 13. We've got Armand, Joseph Skynet, and Waffle Buddy, Trudy Glenn, Pollination, Non-Profit Freedom. Grippy. We've got Bison and Wu-Tang Man, Kev, is the very last in there. And
Awesome.
thanks everybody for turning up.
Awesome, and he's got a clowned up Pepe as Wu-Tang Man. We like that. We like, yes.
Yeah.
Himself and Scott and Joe and Whistles here, we were just talking briefly before the show. Usually this time of year, guys, we're getting into the creepy clown stuff. What's happened? Are they out there? I've seen people in Discord saying, yes, there is a creepy clown thing going on, but I've not seen any, Scott, Jimmy, Joe, Whistles. I've lost names.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I usually around this time of the year, we're usually talking about the whole, the clown stories start popping up, and we start hearing the stories of the creepy clowns and all of that. But so far, the clowning around has been to a minimum this year, or I haven't seen much about it. Here's an interesting thing, though. I mean, what is that, Kev?
Well, who is Wrinkles the Clown? It talks about somebody being the internet famous clown. I've never heard of Wrinkles. It's utterly terrifying. I've got scarier masks than that, though.
Yeah,
he's unmasked in a new documentary. How ominous, how sinister is that picture, boys?
Yeah,
Dang.
I mean, for those of you listening on TFR, what we're looking at is quite disturbing, and I don't know.
I'm going to throw the picture into
that,
TFR right now so that they can appreciate the creepiness that we're looking at here. This is bizarre.
So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with all this. I mean, I guess it's a good thing. I mean, I don't want to be hearing about creepy clowns running around terrifying people, but it does seem to be sort of toned down this year. So I don't know.
Maybe for once the media aren't going all over it, because it's like anything in the media that seems to snowball things. You get people looking at it and going, "That's quite a good idea. I'll go and do that." Maybe.
On top of that, I mean, you've heard kind of all of the hatred kind of being thrown out there against the new Joker movie, right?
What is this all about? When did movies stop just being like entertaining movies and had to be like some kind of trigger or political statements or personification and glorification of us pesky white middle-aged males, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. So do you think maybe the media is toning down their coverage of or not pushing the whole creepy clown situation because of the Joker film? I don't know.
You would
know what I
think
mean?
you would think this year more. Maybe now the Joker's out, Whistles. Like this movie's out this weekend. It's going to set all kinds of records. Hopefully the media won't trigger anyone that's of that kind of mindset to go and do something. I think it's people, if you want to go and see the Joker, go and see it. Don't be like scared to go and see it because of all this media hype. But maybe, Johnny, maybe the Joker, once it's out, once people have seen it, then we'll get the parade of the clowns.
Kev, what I have been seeing on the Joker is, I mean, it just seems quite silly that even it was like, I think it was the FBI put out a statement saying that there may be some something going to happen in one of the theaters at this film, and
Yep.
honestly, it was quite disturbing to hear that. Do you know what I mean? Because actually, I think it's not true. Do you know what I mean? I don't think it's a true story.
Well,
and I think
there
they're
are
actually
some.
trying
Well,
to make things just a
some-
wee bit worse than what they are.
the Daily Mail yesterday, and I haven't got the story in front of me, but they got trolled by 4chan. So they did, because there was people on there making fun of this, Johnny, like you were saying, and they were like putting out pictures of theaters and saying, "Oh, the Joker's going to turn up here." And the Daily Mail, they ran with it. They used that as an example of how there's threats being made against cinemas, against theaters out there. And when you see the FBI, the feds putting out things like that, and they were warning military personnel to have two kind of alternative routes to get out of theaters and things like that. For me, we covered this before, I think, guys, and I'll get your take on this, Joe, Scotty. It's almost as if they're trying to seed the idea in the mind
Yes.
of the public. They're the ones that are trying to trigger anything, because without this, Joker would have just been another Joker film.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Just
Exactly.
another Joker film. That's exactly right. So what do? They put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's exactly it. And then any sort of event or anything that even remotely goes down that road, they publicize it and they basically build a narrative. You know, that's what they're doing. It's akin to writing a book.
Well, Joe, they're even talking about putting police in all the theaters. I mean, what's that all about?
California movie theatre shuts down after police demand possible threat against the cinema was credible.
Oh,
And it was in response to the Thursday opening of the Joker movie. And I do believe this is one of the ones that appeared on 4chan first.
Yeah, and to be quite honest with you, what does it do? It normalizes having police in the theaters.
Exactly.
And then they're just going to have them there all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't
At
that
the cost
interesting?
of the
Because
taxpayer.
it's a way that you can get the private sector to fund salaries of or to subsidize police departments. And here's another way to do it. You know, you have that public-private partnership.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And like I said, it normalizes the police state, right? Because then it gets people acclimated and used to police being everywhere. When you go into the theater, what's the next what's the next step? Are they going to search you? Are they going to pat you down when you come into a theater now? So it plays that whole part. And I was thinking along the same lines as Johnny there when I first saw the whole FBI putting out the warning and all of that stuff. I'm like, all this is doing is putting the idea out there, because if somebody wasn't thinking about doing something before, well, now they are, because the media has whipped everything into such a hype. Now it's almost like they're giving a little nod and a wink to any sort of disturbed individual that might be out there, and now they've put it out there. They've put that idea out there. And so, yeah, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And you're right, Kev. If they wouldn't have even said anything about it, if they wouldn't have even mentioned anything about it, it would have been another movie that was released. And
just another movie.
Yep.
And to be quite honest with you, look at this movie now and look at the action movies of the late 80s, early 90s, like Demolition Man, Last Action Hero, your Predators, your all of your really good Die Hard, all these really good movies were chock full of violence, right? Nobody went and shot up anything, and there was no anything. Mainstream media didn't make any big deal out of it, and there was nothing being put out there I mean, was there people that were against the violence in the movies? Yeah, you always have those people, the same ones that talk about the video games. You always have that section of the population that don't like them, and I think that their concerns are legitimate because it does foster that kind of thing. It does, normalize or take away the shock value of these kinds of situations, and maybe sort of it conditions people to be able to pull the trigger against their fellow man in some aspects. I don't know, but all I know is that you take a look at the Joker movie and you take a look at some of those other movies of 20, 30 years ago, and the movies 20, 30 years ago were much more violent and nobody did anything then. So what has changed? What's the difference now? That's
Snowflakes.
Soy. Soy is the difference.
It just comes down to a 3-letter word: soy.
It's just soy, man. It's just snowflakes and soy, both of which
You think
go
so,
hand
man?
in
You
hand.
think it's because
People are broken, dude. People are just broken, and the younger ones that are being brought up right now, they're under this full kind of climate change kind of brainwash and indoctrination into the death cult that's going on. They're not being educated anymore. They're not ready for the real world, and this all adds to the likes of the Joker having the potential to trigger people out there. It's a movie. It's a movie, What's happened? I just don't get it. But hey, what do I know? But I hope this does actually start a new wave of goofy clowns going around, because that was always good to talk about. We could always judge them on the way that they presented themselves. We could have like the best weird clown of the year. Yes. And everyone seems to be doing something. Joe seems to be busy. Whistles seems to have ants in his pants. Not too sure.
No, I'm fine. I'm just fixing my...
I'm just taking a look at what you were saying, and it's funny when you talk about soy, right? And the fact that people are broken. It's very much that. There's an article that when I was perusing for Woo tonight, that says basically 1 in 5 people from Generation Z and the millennials regret buying houses. Those that did, they said, this sucks. I should have rented. And it's a huge shift from other generations that was practically zero, and now all of a sudden everybody regrets and get buyer's remorse. I mean, and I was even talking to my father tonight about it. He says, your mother and I, he says, we worked 45 years. 45 years. He said, if we had to build a house today, we couldn't afford it. How do you afford something like that?
No.
So it's like, even they admit in this environment now, they couldn't afford to do or live the way that they did. So then what do you do? And it's like the whole system is broken. And now people are starting to break. And you can either let it crash and burn, or you can start to fix things on your own. And I say that the solution to all our problems lies with the Greys.
You think so, dude? After the show?
Absolutely, the Greys are our answer.
No, you see, you haven't listened to the show on Wednesday that I done with Joe Sumple. And after listening to that, the Greys are not the answer.
They
unfortunately,
are. We make them into crackers. Unfortunately, Soylent Grey.
Well, actually, I was talking about my stream today. My stream today was called Soylent Green is Real. It's here. Yeah. So funny you bring that up, because we're living at a time now where literally there's people calling for us to eat each other.
Yes.
To save the planet.
I agree. Yeah. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Joe, you have at it, dude. In fact, all you people that want to offer yourselves up to the Soylent Green, go for it. Go for it.
Are we going to call this the Soylent Green New Deal?
Mm.
Wh- eh,
The green
I was thinking more
Even
along the
my
lines
friend
of making a
AOC
play
didn't
on
know what to make of this today.
No,
She didn't
so
even know.
soy, SOY, right? That's the key word to everything. Soy. What's the problem? Soy. Soylent Green. We don't use green. What I'm saying is we take the grays
Oh no,
and we turn them into crackers.
dude, the Greys are taking us. This is what we learned the other night.
Yeah.
And my whole thing about getting onto the spaceship
It's
with
my
the Nordics.
counteroffensive, Kev. It's my counteroffensive.
I like it. I like the idea. It's just the timing's off, dude. The timing's off. Nobody's gonna buy it 2 days after
I was never good with time.
No. Ange told me that, but she no. After the show the other night, dude. Trust me. Not all aliens are good, Joe. Not all aliens are good, and I tell you, man.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Is
So
that the ones that aren't, we turn them into nutritional supplements.
Dang,
Absolutely.
dude. Dang. How can you get any freakier on a Friday than the world actually people making a like an academic case for us starting to eat each other?
Yeah.
When
Eating
did-
babies.
Yeah, yeah.
She even spoke about eating babies, that woman.
Yep. I'm going to get the
Wow.
clip up. I showed it earlier today on the...
Let me tell you something. Cannibalism is nothing new.
No,
It's
no.
not new at all. And eventually we're going to run through all the diets and all the fads. We're going to get to this eventually. So we might as well cross this bridge now.
Yes, so this is what we're talking about here for anyone who wasn't on the stream earlier. Yes, Soylent Green is people, and Soylent Green is not the stuff of sci-fi anymore. It's here, it's now.
Last two questions come from Lurline Grant and Nicole Maxley. May you raise your hands, please? Okay, great.
But we're not going to be here for much long because of the climate crisis. We only have a few months left. I love that you support the Green Deal, but it's not getting rid of fossil fuel. It's not going to solve the problem fast enough. A Swedish professor saying, we can eat dead people, but that's not fast enough. So I think your next campaign.
Somebody says this was a troll on AOC. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Look at the eyes of this fluoride-filled individual. This person honestly believes that if everyone in this room was to drop dead right now, it would save the planet.
Slogan
Only
has
a
to be
couple of
this: we
months
got
left.
to start eating babies. We don't have enough time. There's too much CO2. All of you, you're pollutants. Too much CO2. We have to start now, please. You are so great. I'm so happy that you're really supporting the Green Deal, but
children.
it's not enough. Even if we would bomb Russia, we still have too many
Yeah, even if we were to wipe out Russia, there would still be too many.
people, too much pollution. So we have to get rid of the babies. That's a big problem. Just stopping having babies is not enough. We need to eat the babies.
Yeah. Do you remember that film, The Hills of Eyes? Eat the baby.
Wow.
Wow.
Well,
Do you know, I mean, how bad
and
does
look
it
at,
get?
Look at her. Do you see how she's like, how do I go about this to where I don't offend anybody, but you see her? She's like, in her mind, she's like, what the proverbial is going on?
She's like, where's
right
Kev
now?"
Baker when I need him? Where's my wingman? Where's Kev? Where's my running partner?
And this is very serious. Please give a response.
Thank you. No, thank you. Thank you. We'll go ahead.
Okay.
No, we'll go ahead. It's so no. Yeah, no. Thank you. So I think yeah, no. So
I thought you really cared. I thought you'd join me in eating babies. What's wrong with you, AOC?
Hell.
one of the things that's very important to us
Wait, 2
is
secs,
that
Scott.
we need to treat the climate crisis with the urgency that it does present. Luckily, we have more than a few months.
Yeah, luckily.
We do need to hit net zero in several years.
We do need to hit net zero. So we do need to get down to zero CO2. We do need to get rid of anything that like produces carbon dioxide, right? So we don't eat the babies now. We've got plans before we get there. Don't worry about that. That's like way down the road or like a few months down the road.
Yeah, we'll get there. Baby steps. Oh,
Whenever we get back from break, I'm going to present George Carlin's response to all of this climate ridiculousness. And we'll bring a little bit of sanity back to this insane clown world that we live in.
Yeah.
So, yes, after the break, everyone, we're going to get a dose of some. We're going to get red pilled by some George Carlin.
DJ's got a bit of an identity crisis going on in his family. Get ready, folks. You're about to hear my illustrious AI companion. Yes. Come on, Brian. Do your thing, Brian. Come on. Let's do it, Brian. Now, Brian. Do it now. Are we guys good, man?
My green bin has decided to identify as a blue bin.
That would normally have been enough to trigger me, but on a day where people are wanting to eat me, no. We'll come back on the other side. Don't go anywhere, folks. One segment down on Freaky Friday, 5 to go. Don't go anywhere. There we go. We're still live on the Yubel Tubles. Yes, indeed. That's been a crazy day, man. And I went and showed the Swedish person, like the academic, that was literally making a case at the Future of Food, a program on Swedish TV, no less, where he put forward this case. The future of food, it needs to be humans. And we need to really get past these conservative taboos that people have. You know, we need to maybe
so what do we start farming humans?
And do you know what it says, Joe? Do you know what it says right at the end? Much like Eric Holder and his brainwashing people, right? It says if people don't get over the taboos, what we could always do is just trick them into it. And then when they get used to it, well, hey.
You've been eating it for years.
Bob's your dinner. There you go.
That's literally Soylent Green, right? Nobody knew that they were eating humans, right? Until
but what is it? Is it of the Soylent Green blueprint that it's all of the people that have decided to end their life through euthanasia, or are there human farms?
Personally, I think anyone worrying about the effect that we're having on the planet to the point where they think people should be eaten, I think they should be the first in the pot. I mean, practice what you preach, right? You're worried about it.
You wouldn't need any jails. They would be the first people to be eaten. The jails, you wouldn't need anything.
Well, to give you an idea, if we're going to go by the old Georgia Guidestone number here,
mine and your idea, although it's still private, Scott, I'm even more in the camp that we were in that day. Bring on the Guidestones. Let's get it going. Bring on the Guidestones, because I tell you what, folks, we've got it all wrong. It's not 500 million elites. It's not all these progressives. It's not all these people that want to eat each other. It's not the ones that think the planet's ending. They're actually going to keep all of us. Why? Because we think for ourselves. And we're going to get rid of the wheat. We're going to get rid of the chaff, and the wheat will remain. Mm-hmm. Yes. I'm only joking, obviously. I wouldn't, push the Georgia Guidestones, Scott.
Oh, no, of course not, Google Boy.
Google Boy wouldn't push the Georgia Guidestones, would I?
Never.
No. And somebody saying to me today, Google tell you to stop talking about CERN, Kev. No, it's just closed for a couple of years, that's all. Nothing to say there. Nothing to say.
Back's getting away of a good story.
I know. But we're getting ready to go back to the mothership.
Who was this guy anyway? Roman Catholic Christian?
Well, they reckon it was Ted Turner. They reckon it was, but who honestly knows?
No, it was part of my Muslim Jews for Jesus.
There goes the algorithm. Thank you, Joe. I think eating people probably triggered it. Yeah, I don't think it takes too kindly to eating people.
Oh
no!
Well,
I just swapped
maybe it
out
does. Maybe the algorithm is sympathetic to that.
It's maybe it did. Maybe it's hungry for people. Who knows? But we've got a lot of woo to come. We've got Mikhail in the chat room as well. Mikhail was our I hate to say star of the show the other night, Scott, but for anyone who missed that, go to the LA Marzulli show. And towards the end of that, we opened up the phones. And wow, take a listen to that. And we may open up the phones again today. But Scott, get the Wookiee ready. Here we go.
Here we go.
Indeedy, we are back. Welcome to Freaky Friday, moving into the second segment already. And it's going even faster this week because Johnny Whistles is with us. That's what it is, folks. We've got Joe, we've got Scotty, we've got me, we've got Soylent Green at the ready, but Scott has got something to counter.
Back together again.
Yes. Come on, Scott, counter the Soylent Green.
Yes, with all of this climate change hysteria and our good friend Greta running around at the UN and our friend over here talking about eating babies and all of this stuff, I think it's time to let the late and great and absolutely brilliant George Carlin bring a little bit of sanity to the situation. So without further ado.
See, I'm not one of these people who's worried about everything. You got these people around you, the country's full of them now. People walking around all day long, worried about everything. Worried about the air, worried about the water, worried about the soil. Worried about pesticides, insecticides, food additives, carcinogens, worried about radon gas, worried about asbestos. Worried about saving endangered species. Let me tell you about endangered species, all right? Saving endangered species is just one more arrogant attempt by humans to control nature. It is arrogant meddling. It's what got us in trouble in the first place. Doesn't anybody understand that? Interfering with nature. Over 90%, way over 90% of all the species that have ever lived on this planet, are gone. They're extinct. We didn't kill them all. They just disappeared. That's what nature does. They disappear these days at the rate of 25 a day, regardless of our behavior, I mean. Irrespective of how we act on this planet, 25 species that were here today will be gone tomorrow. Let them go gracefully. Leave nature alone. Haven't we done enough? We're so self-important. So self-important. Everybody's going to save something now. I'll save the trees, save the bees, save the whales, save those snails. And the greatest arrogance of all, save the planet. What? Are these people kidding me? Save the planet? We don't know how to take care of ourselves yet. We haven't learned how to help one another. We're going to save the planet? I am getting tired of that. I'm tired of Earth Day. I'm tired of these self-righteous environmentalists. I'm tired of these white, liberal, bourgeois, liberal, white people who think the only thing wrong with this planet is there aren't enough bicycle paths. Trying to make the world safe and clean for their Volvos. There's nothing besides first of all, the environmentalists don't give a about the planet. They don't care about the planet. Not in the abstract, they don't. You know what they're interested in? A clean place to live. Their own habitat. They're worried that someday in the future they might be personally inconvenienced. Narrow, unenlightened self-interest doesn't impress me. Besides, there's nothing wrong with the planet. The planet is fine. The people are The people are compared to the people, the planet is doing great. The planet has been here for 4.5 billion years, all right? 4.5 billion. We've been here, what, 100,000? Maybe. 200,000? Maybe. And we've only been engaged in heavy industry for a little over 200 years. 200 years versus 4.5 billion. And we have the conceit to think that somehow we're a threat, that somehow we're going to put in jeopardy this beautiful little blue-green ball that's just floating around the sun. Planet has been through a lot worse than us for a long time. Been through earthquakes, volcanoes, plate tectonics, continental drift, solar flares, sunspots, magnetic storms, the magnetic reversal of the poles, bombardments for hundreds of thousands of years by comets and asteroids and meteors, sandstorms, erosion of all kinds, cosmic radiation, worldwide fires, worldwide floods, recurring ice ages. And we think some aluminum cans and some plastic bags are going to make a difference? Planet isn't going anywhere. We are. We're going away.
And there we have it. Good
Yep.
old George Carlin.
And of course, Greta is the star of this this propaganda that's going on right now. I see somebody in the chat room saying she's an actress, and yeah, in a way, you could say that her parents are both in the entertainment industry, but you've got to appreciate here, unlike the whole Iraqi thing you mentioned where the girl was talking about what was going on in Kuwait and we found out that was totally fake. you've got to appreciate now as well, though, that Greta is the face of children today. And there's this thing, they're even calling it eco-anxiety. And my point being, even as much of a stooge as she is, she's just like a face on a program that's been going on in the background for years. In schools, it's been happening since the 90s. And now we're looking at
a Captain Planet cartoon for all these kids, just so that they get a little.
We're looking at a generation now, though, Joe, who has been under full indoctrination into this.
Yeah.
You know, and as much as Greta's playing her part, when you go and listen to actual, like, kids out there, activists, they honestly do believe the kind of thing that Greta's telling us, that they've been told to.
It's great because you see in full effect firsthand the power of hijacking the education system. It takes some time, but in the end, it is an amazing power grab that they did, and they basically indoctrinated this way of thinking, this approach, Scotty, into the very fiber of these young people and their being. So now this is what they think. It's similar to how we say that the people graduating high school now don't know life before 9/11, what it was like.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you know, this environmental alarmism has become ingrained within the education system. And if you think about it in a way, I mean, it first of all, I consider it a form of child abuse because you're traumatizing children.
Sure you are.
It literally is, in a way, trauma-based mind control or trauma-based, trauma-based.
Trauma doesn't have to be physical.
No, it don't.
Right.
And you know, Kev is right. I mean, I've seen the stories. You know, I saw one of the clips that he sent me. Yeah, they literally are calling it eco-anxiety. You have kids out there that are so traumatized by this and so scared that they have like these anxiety, panic. You know, they're panicking because they literally think that the world is coming to an end because of this alarmism and this crazy thing being taught to them, you know, saying, you know, we only have 12 years
because
the world's gonna end.
Because media deals in extremes, because extremes is where they make their money. So everything is sensationalized. That doesn't mean to say that the planet isn't under a change process, because it clearly is. The issue is, how is it being marketed to everybody, and how are they doing this? So they're executing it to our young people. Not only are they seeing it on the TV when their parents are watching television or in school through their curriculum, they're getting it. Basically, any form of media or any form of instruction they're receiving has this type of narrative being taught, right?
Here's a good example. My younger brother, you know, in high school, when they have to do a paper or do some kind of a research paper, or write something, where they have to look up news articles, they are instructed to only get their news articles from certain sources.
Of course.
Yes. And what is one of those sources? CNN. You know, it's these mainstream places that,
right?
Yeah, the narrative publishers that
the Mockingbird outlets
allowed, that they're only allowed to do their research and get their information from when they write their paper, and everything else, you know, that's not a source. You know, you're going to get a bad grade, or it doesn't count if you're not using the what do they call them now? Authoritative sources of information. You know.
But in and of itself is indoctrination, because you're being told, you know, what are the authoritative sources, and anything else is newspeak. You don't want anything bad, so we don't talk like that. We don't use those sources. Those are bad sources, and that gets programmed, and you don't realize how much power that is. You know, you may say to yourself, my kids, they'll be free thinkers. I'm not worried about it. I am. And, you know, just because they go to public school doesn't mean, and it does. It has a huge effect on them. And it's a lot of damage you have to undo if you really, truly care about your kids. Mm-hmm. You know, that's the big thing to really glean from that. it's a
why
lot
one
of
of the-
damage you have to undo.
Yeah, that's why one of the main things, that our family does is, we have such a large family. I have my issues, as far as my disability and stuff. And as much as my mom would like to homeschool, my siblings, it's just not.
It just becomes
it's not.
it becomes not even possible. I
Yeah,
guess my big thing to tell you is when that happens, that's a critical point that you fight back, and you say, no, that is not. That's the kind of thing where you get involved, and maybe the family gets involved, and they write
Totally. You're absolutely correct. And another thing that we do is we make sure that even though my siblings they're going to public school, we educate them at home and present the counter narrative to what they're being taught, right? The
sure, of course.
method, and you give them that option. And well, what we find out is, look, they see through the bull. They see through the bull that they're being taught at school, right? Like my younger brother, he knows it's a racket. He knows it's absolute bull, But of course, you got to go along to play along, right? If you're gonna pass and get through that. But he knows what's up. He's awake to everything. He knows what's going on, and it's the same with my little sister, right? It's very interesting because everyone in her class is like, "Oh my God, you're so smart. How do you know all of this stuff?" She knows about basic things that these kids don't know about. It's crazy. I'll have to think of some examples, but she'll talk about things in class, and the teacher's like, "Wow, how do you know all that stuff? How do you and
they don't. It's part of the agenda to make sure that children are not prepared when they become adults, because if they're not prepared, they're going to seek help from the authoritative sources, right? So there's going to be swim lanes for everything. They want people to be more reliant on government or whatever entities are out there. It's basically you're making your own slave class. Now with automation, people, that's not necessarily necessary, I guess you could say. So now that we're in this next phase of automation, now what happens? How are people repurposed? Because your economies have to evolve with that. So as AI is
a good example. She was talking about the American Revolution and why we fought back against the British. And
look at these. Wait. Look at these crazy people from Glasgow, right? Do you blame them? Do you blame them for wanting to break free? Look at this. I mean, I gotta be honest with you.
Yeah.
So she was just.
But hey, can I be honest with you too? I hear they got better cocaine. They grow in the aisle over there, and.
Well, it's definitely good. I don't know if we grow it here. I don't know if we grow it here, but it's definitely good gear, so I'm told. Allegedly. Allegedly.
But yeah, I mean, she was talking about the revolution. I think they were discussing the Bill of Rights and stuff, in class. It was brought up, and she was discussing the Second Amendment. And I'm talking about a sixth grader here. She's in sixth grade. And like all of these kids, completely oblivious to any of this stuff. And, my sister's over there rattling off, why we have a Second Amendment, what it's there for. It's for, for the, in case the government becomes tyrannical, the people have a right to fight back.
Rise up and throw it off. Yeah.
And all of this stuff. And, all of the kids were like, how do you know all this stuff? Wow, you're really smart, blah, blah, blah. And
that's when you have her put in those fake redneck teeth. And go, I learned it on the internet.
On a tinterweb.
They're
And she's just like, well, this is just pretty much average conversation that goes on at my house, because it is.
We all gather around the fire and put our pipes in, smoking jackets, and Casa de Lopez.
Yes, but we try to make sure that like my siblings are educated and informed. That's the main thing.
What really benefits your household is the fact that you've got such a wide swath of ages that you actually have a good transitional. There isn't too big a gap in ages from one kid to the next to where you have that schism that opens up. Instead, you just have the passing of that information from the oldest, most experienced on down to the youngest, least experienced, but that life experience is translated down the line. It's being translated and downloaded. And that's like the most valuable, because at our source, guys, I truly believe that humans are tribal, and the core of our being, that's how we are.
Yes.
That's why we look for groups to identify with, Joe.
Yeah.
Big time.
Seems to be the natural way that we exist, and the natural way that we want to learn is in these small groups, these small, tight-knit groups. And when we swell too much and bigger than that, it ends up it conflicts with our source code.
That's where Dunbar's number comes into play. If you've ever done research into Dunbar's number, it's about 150 people, and if you've looked throughout history, villages and communes and whatever, communities usually peak out around 150 before people break off and start their own community, because it's the amount of people that a single person can have a meaningful social relationship with is about 150, give or take, but it's not a.
I can't imagine like 5. 150, holy crap.
Think about it. If you live in a small town with say about 150 people, it's one of those towns where literally everybody knows each other, right? And you have a pretty good idea of who's who and all that stuff.
Sure.
Beyond that, like saying you're living in a town with 2 million people. No, there's no way.
Yeah, forget it.
Know everybody,
But that's my point. Is because of that. That's when you have issues come up that are common human issues that all humans suffer with, but it translates into the runnings of the town or the commune or whatever when it gets too big.
Yes, exactly. That's
because of that lack of transparency. It's because of the lack of the ability of everybody to kind of be able to keep track of everything. So things fall through the cracks.
Yep, exactly. And that's where you get into kind of the debate of like how big should government be, and how big should all of this be. And I wrote a really long post sort of about my personal sort of political philosophy, right? Because a lot of people wondered about it. A lot of people make assumptions about that like I'm a Republican, or something like that. And I needed to clarify that, right? You got to clarify those kind of things. And so, I don't like putting labels on myself, but you kind of have to if you're going to sort of lay stuff out like that. And I would say I'm kind of in between like an anarcho-capitalist and a minarchist, right? I think as much as I would like to see like a pure anarcho, no government society, it goes back to what you were saying, Joe, that, we're a tribal species. Yeah. There's always going to be somebody that's going to take the lead in something. And a lot of people don't want to be a leader, right? They're just not a leader person. They're more suited to be,
because everybody's different.
Yeah. So, all history
people into standard categories. I hate that,
No, You can't. And so, I mean, you've seen it all throughout history, right? We are a tribal society. We're going
Sure.
to form. We're going to form. There's going to be some form of hierarchy, right? Where there's going to be somebody that's looked up to as the leader or as the tribal, elder or whatever, and the person to make kind of the decisions. And that's just how it is. That's just how we roll. And so there's going to be some form of government at some level, So. That I think that's the most realistic situation that we could possibly achieve, is that maybe kind of like a night watchman state situation, a minarchist sort of situation, which is actually kind of what the founding fathers intended, right? Government just being the most stripped down, least the least amount of power to government as possible, and the power to the people, right? To kind of make their own decisions. But I don't know. I'm kind of rambling. I've got sidetracked here. Whatever. What are we talking about, guys? It's Freaky Friday. Let's get into some woo.
Is that Joe Joseph? He's the one that always takes it into the boring, always takes it away from anything even resembling woo. I'm sitting here thinking, man, I am losing the will to live. If I wanted to listen to politics, I'd tune into Fox News or CNN, you couple of cowboys. Scott,
Well,
somebody was asking, Scott, how many people do you have in your family? How many siblings have you got, man?
28.
How many siblings do I have? I've got 1, 2.
That many you have to count. It's a bad sign.
Well, you have to understand that there are different cultures put value on large families, and so
I've got
when you have a Latino last name, that typically associates with a large family. Same thing with Italian.
Yes. I've got 3 brothers and a sister. So
that's it.
Yeah. But we're a clan. We're a clan, so we all live in the same. So that's counting, me and my parents. So
does your wheelchair count as a person as well?
It can.
It's a smart chair, right?
Enough already, Joe. Enough already. Enough. There was us saying there's no clowns, and yet here we are sat with one. Look at him. Look. Dang, dude. Dang. Scott, I'm going to take him to task for you, man. I'm telling you. Come on, I got my fighting head on today. I'm ready to fight my corner now. All these trolls have got me ready for it, dude.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so anyway, let's get freaky. There were strange lights sighted off the Outer Banks here in the United States, right off the coast of North Carolina. And this is an interesting fleet of lights that have ignited a debate. Charlotte Observer is writing about that, about whether they're honest-to-goodness UFOs or part of a mysterious military exercise. There have been, of course, a lot of talk about hypersonic missile testing. You've got that, what is it, the TR-6B that the 4chans and a lot of the
TR-3B.
Get it right. TR-3B or something like that, right?
Come on, Joe, get it right. Come on.
Which even had a spot in the X-Files, if you remember.
That's pretty interesting, that. I'll drop a link for everyone over at TFR Live.
Yeah, so these strange lights, or this swarm of lights, it's a good question because we know that the military's been operating a lot of and doing a lot of research with regards to autonomous swarm technology.
Big time.
Okay, and off the Outer Banks is one of the main operating areas for the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps, like the F-18s and then the carrier air wings, all do training off the coast of North Carolina and Virginia in what's called the Atlantic Operation Area or Atlantic Op Area. So it's tough to say whether or not this is something related to that. I will say that these things are awfully bright and
Yeah.
illuminated. And I don't recall at any time outside of flares that we have anything that light up like that. So I would chalk it up to certainly something that is not
Conventional.
our stuff or conventional. Yeah.
So Kev, remember I was telling you about my experience on the 4th of July, right?
Yes.
A few years ago with these orange
Yep.
sort of orbs that I thought were lanterns.
Like that.
Okay, this video is very similar, except what we witnessed was not as bright. They were a lot dimmer and probably a little bit smaller, but it's the same sort of thing. And it was probably, like, remember I said there was a lot
We'll
of them.
be right back, folks. Wow, another segment down. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. 2 hours to go on Freaky Friday. There we go. Yeah, that's an interesting video.
Yeah, and so it is very similar to what we witnessed, but instead of being
Yeah.
off in the distance, what we witnessed was almost going overhead, moving overhead where we were located. So,
But these things are showing up all over the place. Like you say, it's not just North Carolina. These orbs or orbs of light are showing up all over the place. And then, of course, you had that snake-like object in the sky all over the place. Wasn't just in the Northeast. It was out in California, up in Oregon, and even over in Europe, I think it was sighted as well. So these things are showing up everywhere, and there's an awful lot of discussion now about disclosure in the mainstream media, in entertainment. So is that a prep? Is that getting it, like you said, Kev, out into the consciousness to get people ready to accept it?
I think it could be something like that, only because of where it's coming from and who's involved. The same people, the same agencies that have helped to hide all of the UFO stuff are the one that have implanted so many people to the Stars Academy, and they're the ones that are drip feeding us this. So why now? And we always say that if it's coming out in the mainstream and they're appearing on Tucker Carlson and all around the world and being treated seriously, then what's the difference now? Why this push now? And from characters who normally, if they weren't working for To the Stars Academy, Hal Puthoff. I mean, would we normally trust somebody that's had his fingers around MK Ultra projects and staring at
No,
goats
of
and
course
things?
not.
So I don't know, Joe. What do you think? I mean,
I think that they're trying to steer us and manage it.
yeah.
And they're using it as a tool to manage the herd.
What do you reckon,
Yeah,
Whistles? You like the UFO stuff, man? Seen a lot of it
Yeah.
lately?
It's just, I've been wondering, Kev, how it is all coming out, you know what I mean? Because, as you say, the mainstream media now is even suggesting that there is things out there. And one of the NASA scientists has come out just lately there and saying that there is massive news about life on Mars that's going to appear really, really soon. He says it will blow everybody away, so we're waiting on that, Kev, as well.
Nobody will believe him anyway, John. He's from NASA.
No.
Nobody will believe him. But that sounds interesting. And again, you know, if they can tell us then, think of that, folks. We get told. And remember back in the 70s, when they were like sending probes up there, they were finding telltale signs of life. But it's only
No
now.
doubt.
It's only now at this time, at the same time as all of the UFO and the ATIP stuff and To the Stars Academy. And if they can say that there's life on the next planet to us, then from there, it's easy enough for them to say, you know what, there's lots of life out there. I think we're just getting prepared for the inevitable. And it could be, who knows, it could be the smoke screen for just, you know, releasing some new technology that we've built here, but they're going to say that they've kind of copied it or something like that. Maybe we're going to see new tech being released. I don't know. But, you know, I would normally, if somebody had said to me, Kev, at some point in the near future, The Pentagon are going to have people coming out. There's going to be videos coming out. They're going to confirm that they're like not of this world. That's exciting stuff, right? And yeah, it is. But I'm just very wary about who it's coming from. And I'm not saying the videos aren't real.
It's not that we don't doubt it.
Yeah, here we go. I'm going back to the mothership. Hour number 2 already on today's Freaky Friday. With me, Kev Baker, we have Scotty Lopez, we've got Joe Joseph, and the one, the only Whistler is back in town. And yes, during the break there, Whistles, I was asking you about this whole UFO flap, and you were asking me, you know, what's it all about? And I don't know, dude. I don't know. I should be excited right now. Most ufology, or people in ufology, should be excited, right? But I don't know. Maybe I'm just so skeptical, Scotty, Johnny, that anything good that comes out, I just can't accept it. Maybe I'm just too skeptical.
Well, you know, interestingly enough, the ISS gets its feed cut routinely. You know, it's almost like a daily occurrence that something flies somewhere near that thing and they cut the feed. And it happens too much for it to be coinky-dink. So, Daily Star, very reputable, very, very reputable.
Oh, yeah, one of our better ones. Just one up from the Metro.
That's right. They say a mystery ring-shaped object floated by the ISS. Just
a mystery ring, you say, Joe?
Yeah. It says the strange craft bears a similarity to the 1996 Tether incident, where NASA astronauts filmed hundreds of objects swarming around a satellite. Yeah, so that's interesting. It says the footage captured on the ISS live feed shows 2 separate cameras from the station. In the bottom one, a bright ring makes its way across the screen. The clip is fuzzy, but a YouTube user managed to zoom in to show it seems to be a fully formed circular object. Conspiracy site of Sound Mind and Body shared the footage, originally spotted by Tom Brown in January of 2019. Now, one of the most notable things here, they say, is it closely resembles the type of object seen in the Tether incident of 1996. It's where NASA astronauts were monitoring a satellite breakoff from the Space Shuttle Columbia. And when they were filming the satellite, it appeared to be swarmed by hundreds of ring-shaped UFOs swarming like organisms in a sea. Some have dismissed the strange crafts as nothing more than ice crystals. But conspiracy theorists are adamant it is conclusive proof that alien spaceships are in space monitoring the ISS and the Earth. The new footage, of course, has unsurprisingly generated a huge amount of debate online. One question was, could it be the missing white hole? What's a white hole?
I mean, I'm checking that STS tether thing right now. And it is. It's near enough, you know. You think of like updated cameras, new lenses, new technologies. I think we're looking at the same thing.
Do you really?
Could be.
Could be.
Who knows? Looks similar.
Wow.
So the thing is, they can actually recreate that. See that shape with the donut thing? They can actually recreate that with a zoomed-in lens. That is one of the things I've seen about that, Kev. Although there is a lot of unexplained things there that are not explained. Do you know what I mean? But the things, the round ones there, Kev, you can actually make them with a zoomed-in camera.
So you're saying what we're looking at here, the STS, the zoomed-in cameras producing these things?
Yep.
Why are they coming down at different speeds and different angles?
See, this is the thing I don't know. But
no, that's a poor debunk. There's no way they would go at different angles and down the way and across the way, would they?
I honestly don't know. I really don't. But I seen the guy creating it, and it was, to be honest, it's just exact same as that. I mean, that camera there is zoomed really, really, really far.
You see them when it's far out as well, though.
Yeah, see, this is the thing here. This here. Now, that's unexplainable, Kev.
Yeah. It's a weird one.
Now,
Famous clip.
Try to say that was ice crystals. Now, how that can be ice crystals, that's just
I don't know.
baffles me.
And the flat earthers will tell you it's bubbles in a swimming pool.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just throwing it out. That's what one of the one of the claims is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I always thought about to prove flat Earth wrong, you could actually fly a plane, right, and just keep flying in a straight line, because surely at some time the Earth is just going to turn it in a line. You know what I mean?
You would crash
if it's
into the
flat,
wall.
you know what I mean, and you go round it, it's got to be a line at some point.
Yeah, I think they call that the ice wall.
All right, you can't fly over that. You're not allowed.
You should be able to
US
see it though,
government.
like you say. You should be able to see it at some point. I'm still waiting for that footage, but this is a weird one.
Yeah,
That
it
is.
is. Going to what Whistles was saying earlier about NASA coming out about, some news about Mars and everything. The NASA chief scientist came out and said that the public may not be ready for discovery of life on Mars. I dropped that link in the Skype, Kev, if you want to check that out. But yeah, I mean, they're coming out talking about the public might not be ready for any of this stuff. It says NASA's next mission to Mars will be its most advanced
Oh,
yet.
look at that. I can't get it in my region.
All right.
Sorry, I'll get
Here,
it from a
I'll-
reputable site. Sorry.
Well, there is a.
There we go.
There we go.
I found it. Yep. Could be
But they're saying,
problematic.
It could be problematic. Do you want me to read my article? Or
Yeah,
do you
go
wanna
for it,
read
man.
that?
Go for it.
So yeah, it says NASA's next mission to Mars will be its most advanced yet, but if scientists discover there was once life, or there is life, on the red planet, will the public be able to handle such an extraterrestrial concept? NASA's chief scientist Jim Green doesn't think so. He said it will be revolutionary. He told the Telegraph, it will start a whole new line of thinking, and I don't think we're prepared for the results. We're not. The agency's Mars 2020 rover, set to launch next summer, will be the first to collect samples of Martian material to send back to Earth. But if scientists discover biosignatures of life in Mars's crust, the findings could majorly rock astrobiology, said Green, the director of the Planetary Science Division at NASA. What happens next is a whole new set of scientific questions, he said. Is that life like us? How are we related? That's a very interesting question that they're asking. Is the life like us, and how are we related? It says the Mars 2020 rover, along with the European Space Agency ExoMars rover, will drill into the Martian crust. This is the surface of the red planet is believed to be radioactive, so if there's life on Mars, it likely lives below ground. We've never drilled that deep, he told the Telegraph. When environments get extreme, life moves into the rocks. The principle's been proven on our own home planet. After drilling miles into the Earth, researchers found more life in the Earth's crust than on its surface, he said. The bottom line is, where there is water, there is life. And if the agency's new rovers find proof that water once flowed on Mars, he said, the confirmation could come weeks or months after landing. So buckle up, space lovers. The realm of possibility might get much wider very soon. So it does. It seems like they're kind of prepping the public, right? Like,
they took a look at the Starship from Elon Musk and they thought, oh, dang, he is going to get there. We best start releasing news of the insectoids and the bases on Mars really slowly. By the time we need to get it out there, because that Starship that looks like a sex toy, it's going to get there. It's gone.
It's interesting. Why do they really assume that the public isn't ready for it? I would
check
say
this out, right?
a lot of
Check this out. Susie from the chat room sent me this. Similar things, this time on Soho. similar toroid, torus-shaped kind of rings. I've never seen this around Soho before, but one thing I will say is when he's put this into whatever program this is, we can see how he's actually shifting it. It's not it's not the usual Soho picture. And then later on in the video, and it's not I'm not debunking it or anything, but we see how he does manipulate them. And there they are there, look. Could it be something to do with the lens zoom, something like Johnny was saying? Could it be UFOs?
When you get particles, you get particles, light, or if you get light or like a light source or particles that, if you're zoomed in, it creates what's it called, a bokeh effect or whatever. It's a form of blur that occurs, and everything looks like a round circle. Could kind of look like a donut too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible. But I don't know, man. They do look very similar.
You think of the size they must be, though. If they're like, that's some size. I know it's hard to tell distance and things, but...
Or could we just be looking at some kind of strange phenomenon around the sun that we just don't understand?
And that's
is
the
it
thing,
creating
Scott. Like space, like everything else, we think we understand it.
Yeah.
We've barely been on the moon. Do you know what
exactly. I mean, could we be looking at some sort of electromagnetic plasma field that's being, generated around the sun that creates these toroidal shapes? I mean, who knows?
Or as I prefer to think, like Stargate universe, we get spaceships, that's how they refuel. They go in on top of the sun, they scoop some off. Or even better, maybe they're like Stargates. Maybe you fly into the sun, and then pop out in another sun somewhere, Scott.
If you were to create a Stargate, right, and you needed a source of energy, you would probably need quite a bit of energy to make that trip, right? To create the kind of energy needed for a Stargate. So where would you place it? Probably by a place that has a lot of energy, and I would say a star generates quite a bit of energy. So,
and like Paulie says, these little rings that you're seeing on that still image there, the sun, they could easily be done on Photoshop. And the way you would check that is you would have to go to the actual file from Soho. I think that's the Soho kind of footage that they're using there, or whatever it is. And you would need to go and look at the raw original source from that exact time of filming. And it's not that you're debunking it, it's that you're trying to make sure that everything that you're seeing is exactly what it says it is,
Yeah, it's not necessarily debunking, but you're also trying to confirm. Right?
Yeah, you're not taking somebody's word for it,
Yeah, exactly. Just basic investigative sort of tactics you need to take.
Where did Joe go? Joe just disappeared in a black hole.
He's to see help Ange just now, Kev.
Is he?
Yeah.
He said he'll be back in a few minutes.
I thought we'd lost him down the black hole. I thought he was in the memory hole. Indeed.
The black hole, huh?
How about some mysterious universe woo? How about that?
How about, well, since we're on the space thing and we're talking about black holes, I do have a story about black holes, Kev.
Got it. I've seen it.
And this is right up your alley because I know you like to poo-poo on the black holes.
Hey, dude, I poo-poo on the black holes, right? But at the same time, I've got young Brendan coming on this week on Tuesday, and he's an astrophysicist who is making a simulation. He's coding a simulation of what will happen when two black holes collide. And he says he's been doing this for years, Scott, right? And you know how long, like a period of time, that they're actually trying to get a snapshot of with all this data they're putting in? It's like milliseconds, dude. It's like, so, yeah, I it's not that I poo-poo the black holes, okay? It's that I just don't know if we have a full understanding of quite what they are. And I'm sure even scientists would say that, right? Because how can you know what something is when by definition you can't even bloody see it, So please don't think I'm denying that black holes. I'm not a black hole denier, folks. I'm not.
No, Kev. You're a black hole denier. You're a
Oh,
gravity denier.
space
We
doesn't
all know.
exist. Space doesn't exist. Gravity's not real. I know. I'm terrible. Tell us, Scott. What are they, man?
So, this is from Live Science, and it says black holes as we know them may not exist. So, maybe you're going to get a little bit of confirmation here, Kev. Come on. We're going to...
Stick with me long enough, folks, and the most outrageous things I say sometimes get proven right. Only sometimes, though.
So it says, if you were to dive into a black hole, something we would not recommend. Yeah, I would not recommend that.
No.
Probably have a bad day. You'd likely find a singularity or an infinitely small and dense point at the center. Or that's what physicists have always thought. See, I think Kev wrote this article.
No. No.
It says, but now a pair of scientists suggest that some black holes may not be black holes at all. Instead, they may be weird objects chock full of dark energy.
Oh, now that's
Yes.
interesting because we had Brendan the last time that he was on and Brian Keating as well when I was talking to him. It seems that the world of science are starting to scratch their head when it comes to the old dark energy thing, and they're starting to think, well, are we even looking for the real? Are we looking for something that's even there? They're looking for new ideas. That's what's encouraging to me. They're starting to think outside the box, Scott.
Because quantum physics, I think, is forcing the scientific community to think outside of the box and think beyond the realms of their sort of confined way of thinking before, because it's throwing a wrench into everything. You know what I mean? And they can't really deny a lot of the results that are coming out of the experiments that they're doing on the quantum level, and it's just like, so it's forcing them to think outside of the box. So continuing on here, it says, they think that some black holes may be basically these weird objects chock full of dark energy, the mysterious force thought to be pushing at the bounds of the universe, causing it to expand at an ever-increasing rate. It says, if what we thought were black holes are actually objects without singularities, then the accelerated expansion of our universe is a natural consequence of Einstein's theory of general relativity, said Croker, the astrophysicist at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. Croker and a colleague described this idea in a new study published online August 28 in the Astrophysical Journal. If they are right, and the singularity at the heart of a black hole could be replaced by a weird energy flinging everything apart, that may revolutionize the way we think about these dense objects. The duo was not out to uncover what's inside a black hole. Crocker and Joel Wiener, a professor emeritus in mathematics at the same university, were looking at Friedmann's equations, which are simplified from Einstein's theory of general relativity. Relativity describes how mass and energy warp space-time. Physicists use Friedmann's equations to describe the expansion of the universe, in part because the math is simpler than in Einstein's body of equations describing relativity. The team found that in order to properly write down Friedmann's equations, ultra-dense and isolated regions of space, like neutron stars and black holes, had to be treated in the same mathematical way as all other areas. Previously, cosmologists believed it was reasonable to ignore the internal details of ultra-dense and isolated regions, such as the inside of a black hole. We showed there is only one way to construct these equations correctly, Croker told Live Science. And if you do it that one way, which is the correct way to do it, you find some interesting things. The new results suggest that all the dark energy required for the accelerated expansion of the universe could be contained in these alternatives to black holes. The researchers discovered this in the math after they had corrected the way to write out Friedmann's equations. And in a follow-up paper submitted to the Astrophysical Journal and posted on September 7th on the preprint journal, was it Arziv, they showed that these alternatives to black holes, called generic objects of dark energy, or geodes, could also help explain peculiarities in gravitational wave observations from 2016. And, it continues to go on here. It's a really long article, but I don't know. Very interesting. Do you think, Kev, that this could possibly be just another example of them kind of plugging things into the equations to make things work and kind of just going from there,
Sounds
because
like
we still can't even explain what dark energy is, right?
I always say it's just something to help the math be rounded up. It completes the equation. In math, when you were in school, you had that unfortunate remainder at times, Johnny. Remainder 5, remainder this. It's the remainder equation, right? We don't know it. There's a number left, so we'll just call it. We don't know what it is. We'll say it's like dark. Cool, dark energy, dark matter. Cool, we'll go with it.
Exactly.
Doesn't that show those? Doesn't that show how little we do know? Then that likes of these like little things that look like jellyfish or records flying about in space, whatever way you want to see these toroids. Who honestly knows? We know so little, dude. No little.
Yeah. And like I said, this just seems like a thing where they were trying to figure out how to make the math work. They could, and then they were like...
They started rearranging equations from the past, Hang on, maybe got it wrong. We'll just move a bit. The math looks better now. I don't know. Yeah. I think I'll keep this... I'll keep this article. I'm going to put it in there. My notes.
It's like, what is the math for dark energy? And it's like, well,
that's the
whatever we put in, really. You know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Honestly, it's just everything to fit, because they can't find anything else. Make it dark energy or dark matter.
Yep.
Crazy.
That's the thing, Whistles, because they don't even know what dark energy is. It's a gap in mathematics. It's a gap in their equations, and so they just kind of have to put a name on this unknown.
You know what? Yeah. Dark energy isn't in space. Dark energy resides at Carmel, Maine, with the shadow dudes. That's dark energy, folks. Those things you see wandering about taking physical form now, that's dark energy. And if there is something out there in space that goes by the name of dark energy, dark matter, stuff that we don't know about, very cool. But tell you what, it's that dark energy that has the habit of manifesting in the living room or, catching your corner of your eye. That's the dark energy I'm more concerned about.
Give me the shivers there, Kev.
No wonder. And earlier on the stream today, new member in the YouTube channel here, the KBS family, Vor, I think his name was, he's actually spoken to Zach from Ghost Hunters about Carmel, Maine. He's also spoke to another leading ghost investigation team about Carmel, Maine. And it would look, I'm hoping, I've got my fingers crossed here, but maybe we'll start to see some proper investigations going on up there. They're going to look into it. They're going to see what they make of it. And like I said earlier on the stream, listen, even if a ghost hunting team goes in there and they tell us, the guy was at it, it was all bunk, then cool. We've got to be ready for whatever the investigations tell us, Can't have any, we would like it. In fact, would we like it to be the shadow people? But what I'm saying is we have to keep an open mind. And the only way we'll get even more to the bottom of this is if we do get people going in there, Scott, Johnny, and doing that kind of investigation,
Yeah.
Top of the range cameras, EVPs, the kind of material, you get that, the SLS camera, get the Ovilus going, that kind of thing. In that house in Maine, I think that's got to be, fingers crossed, that'd be awesome. Yeah, Joe, I don't know if you caught that bit, but one of our new members on the YouTube channel was, they had spoken to Zach from Ghost Hunters. This guy owns the, paranormal museum and everything else.
Oh, and very good, very good.
He's made people aware, people in the ghost hunting game aware of that property. So who knows what might come of that? Maybe we'll see somebody going up there.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I would love to see that.
Yeah,
that investigated.
Exactly, Joan. Whatever the outcome of the investigation is, brilliant. Whether it turns out to be proving what we're seeing, whether it debunks it, whatever way the cookie lands, we've just got to be ready for that. And more investigation is needed, right? Because we've had that guy filming it. We've had allegedly another YouTuber invited in to film it. But we need somebody totally independent. That would be a good thing, I think. And for anyone who hasn't no idea what we're talking about the shadow dude. That's what this guy calls him, who lives in a house with the owner. And I take it the place is called Carmel, Maine, right?
Yeah. Carmel, Maine is the town.
Weird. And since you've been here, Joe, I mean, you've been away all week. My brother, he's got something that sounds like the shadow dude from that property in his place. Like,
oh, wow.
Physical form.
Yeah, see, that's interesting. And then, of course, Scotty's brother has been visited by a dark entity.
And Scotty's mum has had some paranormal activity going on recently as well, dude.
Yeah. And Ange is also. So there's certainly an uptick. That's why I say just I don't even attribute it to the news cycle or the fact that the internet tends to publicize more because more people are sharing their experiences. There's more to it than that. We'll get into it on the other side.
I seen somebody in the chat room, I think it was JP, saying quantum particles. Where was it? Just a made-up theory. I would be careful with that one, since everything, all matter, is made up of electrons and quarks. Just saying.
Yeah, these are things that aren't in dispute because they've been observed and measured. You know, so it's not something that's really in dispute. But certainly, you know, with the Carmel, Maine thing and the increase in activity, there certainly is, if you ask me, in my humble opinion, an uptick in activity, and I can only attribute it to the fact that our environment is changing. And when I say that, I mean it in every sense of the way, that also the spiritual landscape of things is also changing. The environment that the battle is waged in has changed. So not just in the way that we experience it as human beings in this three-dimensional space, but also as these entities are experiencing it in their environment, because they're also part of this. Just because we can't experience it doesn't mean that they're not going through changes in their environment as well. You know?
Yeah.
Well, we've heard about this, the veil that seems to be, it gets pretty weak, and it always seems to be in the month of October. In the middle of October. Yeah, I just wonder if the uptick, do you know what I mean? As you said, I mean, there's a lot of people now that have been actually coming away with some strange stories, and there is a lot of them. The uptick just now is, I mean, it's pretty weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, Whistles. I mean, it is that time of the year. You know, it's that time of the year where things start happening. But I think in general, just not just it being this time of the year, but I think just in general over the past, you know, there's been this increase over the past couple of years. You know, well, I would say over the past 10 years, you've just seen
or even more than that. I would be interested to see if, and of course, you would have to be measuring this the entire time for it to even have some sort of credibility to it. But if there is a pronounced increase, or maybe even a increase in paranormal activity as the magnetic field of the Earth has weakened. So
I think it plays a major role.
I think it
honestly
does, because I think those are shields in much more than just making sure we don't get skin cancer. I think that they shield us from a lot of different things. And now that the shields are dropping or fading, we're being exposed to things, not just cosmic rays, but other things that
and what is it that they use in paranormal investigations? Electromagnetic fields, right? EMF detectors, right? And that seems to be one of the main, you know, sort of things that always is affected in paranormal. You know, when they're investigating paranormal stuff, it always messes with electronics, and it gets
Here we go,
screwy
boys.
with
2 seconds.
the electromagnets. Yep.
Getting ready to go back to the mothership. And here we go. Second half of this week's Freaky Friday, everyone. And don't forget, coming up right after today's show, we've got Brent Thomas with the Paranormal Portal. So I think, with that being said, with half the show down and with us now talking about during the break there, we'll go over it again for everyone at TFR. You were talking, Joe, about...
Yeah, so as the shields have dropped, right, so too has the increase in paranormal activity picked up. And I mean, probably, I would have to say that the acceleration curve is probably pretty pronounced, meaning that as the acceleration of the weakening of the magnetic field has occurred, because it's accelerating, it's not just, uniformly decreasing over time. It's actually picking up in its speed so it's kind of interesting. You can kind of draw some parallels here. So the movement of the magnetic field has picked up speed, meaning that the North and South poles are moving faster than they have before, and they are increasing in speed. At the same time, the magnetic field of the Earth is decreasing in strength, and that is accelerating, as far as the weakening. And then the activity of the sightings and of the pickup in spiritual activity has increased and is accelerating. So there are some very interesting relationships that are going on here that are not proven. It's just kind of speculation, but you kind of look and see the trends, and you can kind of deduce and throw a theory out there to be measured, something that could honestly be measured.
Big time, dude. I think we all agreed during the break that there does seem to be some correlation with that. Big time. Big time.
Yeah, and we're entering a new age, right?
Like Scotty said, you said during the break as well, right? And I talk about the electric universe, and everything has got this electromagnetism to it. And that's why we see when you're doing ghost investigations that they literally try to pick up on these magnetic fields. They've got devices where entities can manipulate the technology via magnetic fields and things. That kind of goes hand in hand with the electric nature of the universe. So if our shields are going down, the electromagnetics are changing.
Yeah.
Could
and not to mention the fact that we're throwing out there some pretty doggone good intergalactic lighthouses and interdimensional lighthouses, in that here we are, human beings, not only in the last 50 years, not only have we had the bomb, which probably was like, oh, those pesky humans, look where they're doing now. And then not soon after that, we're opening portals and we're smashing things and causing issues there, a la CERN, right? So that's going to put us on the radar.
And what does a nuclear device release whenever it's detonated? Oh, yeah, a EMP.
And then at the same time they're doing that, we're doing these crazy rituals like the Goddard Tunnel opening, which just so happens to be like the most batshit crazy ritual I have ever seen in my life for something that public officials are going to and everything. It was the most out in the open next to the Olympic Games type of thing. And you see all of these relationships. And again, nothing that's been measured, nothing scientifically proven, but there's enough stuff out there, enough circumstantial evidence out there to warrant a theory that can be measured, that can be proven, But I'll tell you what, that Goddard Tunnel ritual was nuts. And that's the kind of stuff that brings about these things.
There's nothing nuts about this, Joe. There's nothing nuts about half-naked,
hey, that looks a lot like your mask.
Winged babies. There's
That's
nothing.
Right. I forgot about that. You are part of this little cult thing that's going on.
And
That's what all the masks are for.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
got you, Baker.
You caught me now, Joe. You've caught me. Yeah. It's definitely a weird one, that whole thing, wasn't it?
Kev, that right there was nuts. The portal. Oh, look at that. Does that not look like that alien donut that was flying by the ISS?
What it does, actually, it does.
I know.
It does. It does. But I was saying today on my daytime stream, you know, I wonder how much I've played into people's paranoia about CERN. Because in all the coverage we've done and all of the speculation that we've done, what can we really prove that CERN has done? You know?
Well, you can prove that
they were acting like the
smashed
beacon.
atoms together.
Yeah.
They've smashed ions.
They were acting as the beacon, like you say. They were opening these microscopic openings into other dimensions. I get that.
Well, there's that, but then there's the magnetic field that it generates.
Well, I've got a problem with that.
Right?
I'll tell you why I've got a problem with that, okay? The Earth produces a magnetic field in a dynamo electrical configuration.
Right. Very much so.
The magnets at CERN are electromagnets.
Yes.
And directional and shielded by niobium and other metals. And they're all focused in the way. And it is an entirely different animal.
In this 3D space, I would agree with you.
Yeah. There's an entirely different animal. We're comparing two different systems. The dynamo magnetic field, the north and south poles, and the lines of force that come out from there. And what they've got at CERN is an electromagnet.
Right.
It's different.
It's much the same as the one that you see in the junkyards that pick up the junk and they move them. It's the same thing. The only thing is you're just using it to accelerate things instead of picking it up. Instead of magnetizing it and bringing it to you, you're repelling it and pushing it.
And I get their own literature tells us we're not making it up. It's 100,000 times the strength or equivalent. I get that. However, you've got to think about it. I mean, do compasses go wacky if you get near to CERN? I've never heard of anything like that. Do instruments on planes get affected? Never heard anything like that. I don't know. And again, all of that energy, Scott, it's focused into the middle. So that the particles don't smash straight into the wall. They're going round a curve. It's just going to smash into the wall, and it's to keep them packed. And I get it. And again, I blame myself for this, right? I actually look at some people and I think, oh man, don't be too worried about CERN. And then think, but I've done this in some small way because I helped to raise the paranoia levels. So I don't know. I'm kind of torn.
I think it's justifiable. Honestly, I think it's justifiable because I think that, yes, you could make the case just as you said, and it would sound totally fine and it's valid. And it is valid. However, whenever we mess around with things like this, there's always collateral damage or things that we don't know that we're doing. Mm-hmm. Case in point, you're putting a lot of electromagnetic energy out there in a very small space, very confined space. You don't know the type of effects it's having in other areas outside of the 3D space.
Now that's very, very cool.
That's my point, is that we don't understand. Yeah, I could make a mathematical and scientific case of how it affects us here and now. But we don't understand the other things that are happening around that. So anything outside the scope of observation, or, when these scientists conduct these experiments, they do so with a very, very, very tight set of criteria, and they don't look outside of that scope. They don't. They're there
and even more from that, Joe. I was saying today, you've got like thousands of scientists there, right? And probably, realistically, you've got two labs right next to each other, and the scientists from one lab won't even know what's happening in the next door lab because they've got they're on different projects. There's so many different projects running there. And again, it's this compartmentalization, right? Yes, says Joe.
Now, there's a lot of the it's I'm trying to digest and decipher what the brain is telling me, and then what you're saying, and then what I want to say, and somehow tie it all together and wrap it in a bow. And it's my brain doesn't work that fast, unfortunately. So,
Well, Kev,
the interesting thing that we have as we're messing around with all this technology is, and this is something again that we tie but has not been measured or can be proven, is the increase in these birds that lose their way, the mass die-offs, like losing their magnetic compass, and they just end up going crazy. The fish, the whales, all of these things, there are indicators that there is a problem. But what's the problem? That's the question. Because there's so many things that could be or are playing into, but either through willful ignorance, or we just haven't gone down that road yet because we just haven't got to, because the bureaucracy is so vast, or they just don't want you to know, and they're being totally and completely opaque about it.
And when we just about know, we get shoved on a different timeline anyway. So Whistles.
And then we get shoved on a different timeline.
What were you going to say, Whistles?
no, it's just that you were talking about CERN and you're kind of okay with it. It's the fact that these things make strangelets. You know what I mean? And
yeah, right on.
You know how destructive they things can be, Kev. And it's
so they say,
making them when you really don't have to. Do you know what I mean? Because at one stage, one of these things is going to go wrong. I really think so. Honestly, you know
it's not
it's
if,
like
it's
something
when.
that will go
He's
wrong.
Full doom and gloom on us. We're all doomed. The black pill, Whistles. You've taken the black pill, man.
Break out the black pill for old Whistles.
Yeah, we done a show on the black pill. We done a show on the black pill, Johnny. You'll need to watch that. You're on the black pill. I get you. I get you. Again, though, when it comes to the fish and the animals and the wildlife, I don't know, but I would look more
perplexing.
I would look more to our shields.
I would too. I would too. However, you have no control, first of all. So you can't even start at square one because you don't know what normal is. Because we never started measuring when there was no pollution, I guess you could say, of the magnetosphere. But now there is. Whether it's CERN, whether it's Wi-Fi, now 5G, all of these pollutants, if you will, and I consider them that, then so we don't even know what the effects are. That's why I can't stand the fact that there isn't more pushback with 5G. And there's a lot of pushback, but they're going forward with it regardless because they know that they can, because they know that people are so effing addicted to these Wi-Fi devices and wireless culture, this wireless culture of convenience that has been brought about, that if they do it, even the fines that they have to pay, I'm sure they worked out, is a pittance and are acceptable, and they've probably budgeted it in to their 5G deployment. It's probably part of their freaking business model. Well, how much in damages are we going to end up having to pay out and fork over time? Let's see. Well, probably cost us about $6 billion over 10 years. Okay, $6 billion over 10 years. And we'll be making how much? Oh, probably $250 billion. Okay, next. You know, it's the same thing with the vaccine courts. They know how much money, so they know acceptable losses and risk and all that. It's all worked into the business model. So who cares if it causes any damage? They've already worked it out. They know how much they're going to have to fork out. It's defined. So they just do it, you know. The hell with the losses. It's going to make some money, you know? And then, of course, you have the cyclical thing, too, to think about. Not only do we have the human factor, but then we have just the fact that these things have happened before and they're going to happen again. And is this the natural way of things, to where you do have that merging or crossover of different dimensions that at one point we couldn't experience or interpret, but now we can. These are a lot of things to think about, man. It's deep. It's not a one-trick pony.
Joe, you were talking about the whales and the birds and everything that are losing their track. What about where the magnetic pole is just now? Do you know what I mean? Magnetic north. It's like over Siberia, somewhere there. Could that be anything to do with that kind of thing? Making them lose their way?
I mean, it could, but I don't think that's enough over time. I mean, these things that happen are, I would have to say, probably more acute than that. I don't think that has to do with the mass die-offs. I don't. No. That is a cyclical thing. So as the poles get ready to flip, whenever that point is, and I don't know what that is, but whenever they do, up until the point they do, and there's the geologic record tells of this, because you can take a look at the magnetic properties of these rocks, and they'll tell you at what point in time the magnetic field of the Earth was at that time, wherever you measure it. Mm-hmm. And they can see that it accelerates right before it flips. So we're in that acceleration phase right now, but it's a normal function. So I don't know if the die-offs are part of that. Again, no one's measured it.
My good friend Ryan Gable, he'll be on the 17th of October back here on KBS. We'll be getting into Billie Eilish and How Good Girls Go to Hell. Yeah, get ready for that one. But he makes a good point here. Everyone remember the TV show Flash Forward? You remember that? Everyone around the planet just woof, they conked out for like 8 minutes, and then they came back to life. And when the long and short of the story was, it was like some kind of array in the desert, and they turned on the switch, and that started off with birds and everything else falling from the sky, stuff like that. Who knows what's causing this? Who knows?
So we're heading for the desert.
And then, of course, you've got, these merging, whether the Mandela effect is evidence of these mergings of dimensions, these phasing in and out of dimensions or different dimensions, even but for a short time, to where you have these changes that occur, these glitches in our environment.
Simulation.
In a simulation, yeah. Maybe we are getting close. Our simulation's getting close to needing a reboot. Kind of similar to what we experience, with Windows. After you let it run for a week, you got to reboot because, man, things are glitching out.
We're only one update away from a blue screen.
We are, man. I'll tell you what. It's kind of like Carlin said, the planet's been around for 4.5 billion years. We've industrialized it for the last 200. What's the problem? Does the Earth have a problem, or does humans have a problem?
Exactly.
That's right. Earth is going to be here well after humanity.
Yeah. The planet has no problem with anything. It's us that the planet will do just fine. The planet will do just fine. So did you guys hear about these mysterious fireballs in Chile that started fires on the ground?
So very, very, very briefly, I didn't even get into it. So you're going to have to kind of catch me up on that.
Yeah, this was pretty wild. I saw a lot of articles on this, but I'm over here on our good old site, Mysterious Universe here, because they covered it as well.
Just can't get any better than Mysterious Universe.
Yeah, excellent stuff. Mysterious lights over Chile that may have caused fires were unnatural, experts say. And I guess this is quite the mystery over there right now, because nobody knows what these things are or what caused them. And it says A series of mysterious lights seen over Chile in recent days, originally thought to have been a meteor breaking up during atmospheric entry, may have had an unnatural origin, according to investigators. The lights were reported on September 25th after observers in the area of Dalache, Chile, reported seeing flaming balls of light descending from the sky. Shortly after the sightings, a series of small ground fires were reported to authorities, which some believe to have been caused by whatever the flaming objects were that had fallen from the sky. At the time of the incident, Chilean astrophysicist and astronomer Jose Maza Sancho suggested that the fireballs had likely been caused by a meteor that began to break apart upon entry into Earth's atmosphere. However, further investigation by Chile's National Service of Geology and Mining reports that there is no evidence that the space rocks or any other natural cause could be attributed to the fires. Chile's Dynamo newspaper reports that samples taken from 7 locations failed to find evidence of a meteorite, with some area authorities suggesting that the fires were caused by some identified source on the ground and could be unrelated to the fireballs entirely. However, if the fires were caused by whatever was seen in the skies last Wednesday night, it raises a few disturbing possibilities, namely that man-made space debris could be the culprit. If proven, this would make the recent Chilean incident one of the few known instances where man-made objects falling from space caused fires once they fell to the earth. Eric Matt, writing for CNET, also suggested this possibility, noting that the circumstances would seem to indicate it was pieces of an old satellite or maybe a rocket booster that roasted bits of Chile. Further analysis by Chilean geologists may help indicate whether this had indeed been the cause. Mack also noted the tantalizing possibility that some other sort of metal or perhaps even a new element created by a far-off alien civilization that likes to announce itself by torching bushes could be blamed. Says, though he further noted it almost certainly isn't aliens. The area of Chiloé Island, located off Chile's western coast, has long been associated with unusual stories that remain largely unknown outside of South America. One involves an alleged group of individuals known as the Friendship, who have occasionally made appearances at the surrounding seaports and coastal markets in the region. While the story has been somewhat tenuously associated with UFO sightings that occurred over Santiago in the 1980s, in the past, I have written about some of the legitimate questions that remain about this supposed group. I do not, however, propose any explicit connections between those stories, interesting though they are, and the recent sightings of fireballs over the island. In the coming weeks, officials with Chile's National Service of Geology and Mining are expected to release further details about soil analysis made at the locations where the fires occurred last week. Perhaps then we will have a clear idea as to whether they were associated with anything seen falling from the sky around that time and whether or not the objects in question had been man-made. So yeah, mysterious balls, mysterious fireballs falling from the sky.
Fireballs, I tell you. So, always gives you a bad day, that, Joe, when you get a dose of fireballs. Oh,
I would have no doubt. I would have to imagine that when they get their soil analysis back, they would probably be able to tell, a lot. That'll answer a lot of questions as far as the origins. If it is a UFO, I'm sure that the types of metal and or fuel, if it was radioactive, that kind of thing, will kind of play itself out. Now, if it's not, well, then that opens up a whole new thing, because, wow, where do these come from? Especially,
they've pretty much already been able to determine that it wasn't a meteorite.
Right. So it's not a meteorite. So if it's not something like that, then what is it?
Well, somebody.
How can they tell that it's not a meteorite?
Well, there was no impact. There was no impact, and there was no
impact. That doesn't mean it's not. So, for example, right, white phosphorus flares. A white phosphorus flare, you could actually put out there these tiny specks. They're called a starburst, and those could actually cause little fires and stuff like that, but they don't come down as they kind of
fast.
fall to the earth. They don't come down with any force or speed. You know.
Well, when we come
So-
back after the break, we're going to continue this little vein of thought because ZX81 in the chat room always gives me a nostalgic blast to the past.
Oh, yeah.
Sent me a story here, and it's called The Betts Sphere Mystery. And we're going to get into this on the other side of the break, but this sounds very familiar and similar to what we're talking about here. So we'll take a look at that. And there's going to be
Pretty cool, that story.
1 hour to go, Whistles. 1 hour already, nearly done. Can you believe it? But don't forget, because we hand over the TFR baton to our good friend, the man who will lead you through the paranormal portal. And Brent has also got a YouTube channel, and he does bedtime stories, the paranormal bedtime stories during the week. I urge you to check that out as well. Sub to Brent's channel on YouTube, listen to the show. Head on over to TFR right after this if you're here on the YouTube stream. We'll be right back after these short messages. Don't go anywhere. And the woo is about to get dialed up as well. We'll be right back. There we go.
Yeah.
From
Hey,
the
you know what
break.
this also reminds me of, guys? This kind of incident.
that?
It kind of reminds. Remember the story that came out a while back about the flaming hole that they found? I think it was.
I
In,
thought, wow, synchronicity, dude. I thought the exact same thing down in Arkansas or whatever.
yeah, it's the flaming hole in Arkansas, and they didn't know
Yeah.
what caused it or anything like that. So this
Right.
kind of is similar, except it's coming from the sky instead of the ground. You know. Yeah, I don't know, man. Weird stuff.
Good chat room today. It's flying in there. Absolutely brilliant. Wars in the heavens above us. Who knows what's going on outside of our atmosphere at times? I'm sure we don't know here. I wish I could tell you. I really do. After the show the other night about abductions and hybrid programs, I have got no idea anymore what is going on. Flaming hole. That's another one that sounds like it would ruin your day as well, along with like
Oh, man, yeah,
fireballs.
tell me about it.
Fireballs and flaming holes.
Fireballs and flaming holes.
You see,
you
you
don't
can
know
always
what
tell who's
that-
the giver and who's the taker by who's got the fireballs and who's got the flaming hole, right? That was
Kev
good.
Baker.
That was good. Come on, folks. But in the last segment of today's show, I think we're going to open up the phones for paranormal woo stories, folks. Give us your paranormal woo. So not this next segment coming up, but the segment after that. We will be opening up the phones. We had Mikhail the other day phoning up about the shadow entities and his life story, his life dealing with the paranormal. So who knows who we'll get today. The day before that, I got an elderly gentleman whose grandfather's brother had been one of the first medics down in Antarctica back in the 40s. It's, yeah, we don't know what we'll get. We don't know who we'll get. Don't know.
Sometime in the near future, Kev, I have a friend on Facebook, and I'm going to try to get her to call in.
Okay, so the dude's saying, Kev, man, that's just wrong. So what's wrong, dude? Tell me what's wrong. All right, the joke. I know my jokes are pretty bad. I know I went there. I know I'm terrible. Okay, I just offended your whole Jonathan. I know. Talking of Jonathan, there's another one of the John Fuller projects. Very cool masks. Very cool.
That's so cool.
Tell Greta that, says JP. She thinks the world is about to end. She certainly does. I've told her though on Twitter, I've said if you need us to help you, make a hand signal. Like just flash some hand signals. And I warned her some are racist, so you got to be careful what hand signals you flash. But we'll go and rescue her. You know, maybe next time she's having like a banquet with royal families or something, she can write help me in the P's or something, and maybe a camera shot can pick it up and we'll be able to get her. I don't know. I'm just thinking. I'm just like, trying to rescue her. I want to give Greta's childhood back to her since we're accused of stealing it all from her. So I want to give her it back, folks. Let's say childhoods for Greta. Hashtag. You Highlander or Lowlander, brother. My grandpa had a dirty joke about that. I am a Highlander through and through. Inverness, born and bred. Let's see. I think it's time to go back to the mothership. Nearly. See, I almost forgot, boys. Almost forgot. Get ready.
Nearly.
Prepare yourselves. We're about to enter hour number 3 on the Freaky Friday. Yes. You bringing us in, Joe?
Nah.
Nah. Okay. Simple as that. There we go.
Ooh.
Hour number 3 already on today's Freaky Friday. Can you believe it? The time is
I can't
absolute.
believe it.
You can believe it or you can't believe it?
Nah, I can't.
You can't. Nah, it's gone quick today, Joe.
It is flying by.
Look, Whistles, he looks like as bright as a button. He's ready to go for
Just like
another
he
3
started.
hours. Yeah, exactly. So we're moving into hour number 3. And before the break, I was saying that, to follow on from Scott's story from, was it Colombia, Scott, I believe? Yeah?
Chile.
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 South America, right continent. I was in the ballpark. Right. Geographically, I was close.
A few thousand miles.
It doesn't matter, Whistles. Doesn't matter. Right? So, ZX81 sent this story here, and it's called The Betts Mystery Sphere. Now, this story comes from October 30th, 2012. So, near enough 7 years old. And it says it was March 27th in 1974, so now it's a whole lot older than 12 years old.
Oh, yeah.
So 1974 we're going back to, and members of the Betts family were in Florida inspecting the damage done by a small bushfire near their property on Fort George Island. Now the island is a patch of dry ground amongst the coastal marshlands of northeastern Florida, well timbered with beautiful moss-draped trees and a tropical scrub. Now, Antoine and Jerry Betts, accompanied by their 21-year-old son Terry, happened to stumble upon a surprising object, a bright metal globe about the size of a bowling ball just sitting there in the grass. It was quite heavy, but otherwise unremarkable. Now, they guessed it might have been an old cannonball. The island has a long history, going all the way back to the 16th century Spanish mission. For whatever reason, they liked the ball and decided to take it home. And that's when the Betts' life changed. It began when Terry was playing guitar. The family reported that the ball strangely resonated with the music. And then it began to move around all on its own. The Bettses experimented with it, placed it on their table, and watched it navigate its own way around the perimeter without falling off. Doors began slamming themselves around the house, and a mysterious organ music filled the residence, even though there was no organ. Finally, the Bettses had enough and contacted the newspapers in the hope that someone might tell them what the bizarre artifact was. So the Jacksonville Journal sent a photographer, Lou Egner, and Mrs. Betts told him to put the sphere on the floor. It rolled a ways, then stopped. So what? She said, just wait a minute. And it turned by itself and it rolled to the right about 4 feet. It stopped, then it turned again and rolled to the left about 8 feet, made a big arc and came back to my feet. Now what followed was something of a media frenzy. One of the many callers was Carl Wilson from a holistic institute in Baton Rouge and called Omega 1. So Wilson spent 6 hours examining the ball at the Betts home and reported not only it had a powerful magnetic field, but it was also transmitting a radio signal. So what the heck is it? Well, Mrs. Betts then called the US Navy base directly across the water from the island and asked if they could examine it. Perhaps it was theirs. They did so, but returned it to the Bettses once they verified it was not Navy property. They x-rayed it and did a metallurgical test and found it to be high-grade yet common stainless steel, hollow with a shell approximately half an inch thick, measuring 7.96 inches in diameter and weighed 21.34 pounds. Now the numbers added up. It was the right weight for that much stainless steel. Its surface was scuffed but seamless, with only one identifying mark, a tiny triangle about 3 millimeters long. Now, following the wave of newspaper reports, Dr. J. Allen Hynek, a ufologist and astronomer at the Northwestern University in Chicago, contacted the Betts family and asked to examine the ball. However, since he was all the way up in Chicago and they were all the way down in Florida, nobody wanted to take the risk of shipping it. But as luck would have it, Dr. Hynek was in New Orleans, and that's Louisiana, is it? The following week for a meeting with the National Enquirer tabloid, which was establishing a $50,000 prize for definitive proof of aliens. Now, since Hynek and several other scientists on the Enquirer's panel were all there, Terry Betts and his sister drove out from Florida to show them the ball in person. So in Hynek's 1972 book, The UFO Experience, A Scientific Inquiry, had made him perhaps the most popular known ufologist of the day. But on the Betts sphere, his verdict was a disappointing one. According to the report in the St. Petersburg Independent, Hynek says none of the 5 scientists now think the ball is anything but man-made. None will go as far as to say it's extraterrestrial, he said in an interview yesterday. They would be putting their scientific reputations on the line. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they didn't believe
it. Just means they didn't want to take a chance.
Exactly. So if the ball was man-made, what was it? And how could it exhibit such strange behavior? Well, when I first heard the story, I immediately thought of the bladder tanks used on spacecraft. These stout metal spheres contain a flexible bladder full of rocket fuel such as hydrazine, and the sphere is filled with pressurized gas to keep a constant squeeze on the bladder. When fuel is needed, the valve opens and the fuel squirts out. These tanks have a reputation for surviving when the spacecraft deorbit and burn up on re-entry. One fell on Namibia in 2011, generating some headlines, and reporters noted that there have been many other such cases over the decades. Bladder tanks are usually a little bigger and lighter than the Betts sphere, but they're in the general ballpark. However, they have obvious couplings where the fuel comes out, and the Betts sphere's only marking was much too small and completely inconsistent with a large valve coupling. It was not a bladder tank. So some authors, also following the assumption that it fell from outer space, have suggested that it was Sputnik, or a Sputnik-like satellite. Now, that would explain the radio signal, perhaps, guys. I don't know. This was largely based on what Carl Wilson had said, that it transmitted a radio signal. But the ball was a poor match for Sputnik. It had no antenna, seams, rivets, mechanical connections, or anything else that characterized Sputnik's globe. More something explanations, looks like Prozac, explanations have been offered that perhaps it was a peg used for cleaning out big pipes, or a mandrel ball used in bending a conduit. So, of course, the best way to answer the question is to actually examine the ball today using modern techniques. Certainly, it must still exist somewhere, whatever became of the Betts sphere. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any record of the ball or Terry Betts himself from recent years, but all those newspaper reports did ring bells with a few people. So the Palm Beach Post reported on April the 18th that Lottie Robinson recognized the ball from the pictures, then went and got her own out of the garage, where it had been sat for some 15 years. Technicians from the St. Regis Company paper mill identified it as a ball check valve from some large pipes used in their factory, and that had been scrapped 15 years before. Somehow that ball had found its way from a scrap dealer to Mr. or Mrs. Robinson's son, and from there to her garage. It was very close, but not identical in size and weight to the Betts sphere. Seeing this, Robert Edwards, president of Jacksonville, Florida Equipment Supply Company, picked up the phone He showed a UPI reporter a brand new stainless steel ball manufactured by Bell and Howell in Bridgeport. And it goes on to say Edwards and the reporter uncrated it, weighed it, and measured it, and found it was 8 inches across and weighed just over 21 pounds, exactly the same as the Bet Sphere. Now, I'm not saying that this thing didn't come from outer space, because I've never seen it, said Edwards. All I'm saying is that the physical description of it matches exactly the type of ball that we have in stock. And the Navy metallurgist had identified the ball as being made of an alloy called stainless steel 431. According to the website of a supplier of this alloy, 431 has been successfully used in a variety of aircraft and general industrial applications. These include fasteners, bolts, valve components, and chemical equipment. But guys, as I'm reading this, right, how does that go on to explain the fact the thing was moving about itself?
Yeah, that that makes no sense to me.
And it was aware of where the edges of the table were, so it didn't fall off the table.
And the strange noises. The strange noises and resonating with music being played and all of that. I mean, it doesn't explain any of that. That's really weird. And this person from the newspaper supposedly witnessed all this, right? Witnessed the ball rolling around. And,
That's the reason why there was a media frenzy afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
There's a documentary about it, because I watched the documentary.
Get this, the Navy says, right, the Navy spokesman, I believe it's because of the construction of the house. It's old and has uneven floors. The ball is almost perfectly balanced, and it takes just a little indentation to make it move and change direction. But at what point does the construction of the house start producing organ music? I'm just saying, I'm no expert Navy guy. I don't know. But
I'm honestly surprised that the Navy just didn't take it. That they gave it to them, because the military has a.
Scott, who knows if they gave them back the same ball?
Ooh, that's a good. Yeah, maybe they just reproduced it, gave it back to him, and they.
You see, I've still got the conspiracy in me somewhere. See, I've still got it there, boys. It's still there.
Good. Yeah, I like it.
I like that story. Yeah, it was found. It was found in a burned patch of ground. This is what twigged this story to mind. Yeah, with the fire that Scott was talking about in Chile. See, I remember this time, Scott. So yeah, interesting. Very interesting indeed. And whistles, I'd never heard of that, man.
Oh, you never heard of it? I've seen stuff about this before too. I might have watched the same documentary that Whistles watched about, but it's a very, very crazy thing. One of those weird sort of objects that was found, and nobody really knows what's going on with it.
So come on, TFR chat. Come on, YouTube chat. Tell us what you think it is, because we don't have a clue. Maybe you'll be able to come up with something better than us out there. And while we're waiting, what other stories have we got in the grab bag, boys?
Well, we haven't talked about it in a while, and so I've had another mystery boom experience.
Oh, fantastic! And then again, not fantastic.
Did you hear it, Scott? Yes, it occurred today at around 2 p.m. We all heard it. Everybody heard it. And for those of you out there on in YouTube land who may be new to this, we've talked about mystery booms before, and these mysterious booms and rumbling sounds that have been heard all over the world, actually, and they seem to be picking up, increasing. And I've had quite a few experiences with the mystery booms here where I live. At least now counting, I don't know, probably like 4 or 5 different occasions now. So I mean, it's getting kind of wild. But today we heard another one, and it occurred around the same time that the other ones have occurred. It's around midday. Usually they occur between about around 12, or around noon to about 3 p.m., somewhere in that time frame. And it was lightly raining today, no thunderstorms, nothing too wild on radar that would indicate lightning or anything like that. And we were just sitting there, and we just heard this dull rumble. Just it seemed distant, but it didn't seem distant at the same time. It was very strange. My mom thought that somebody had dragged something across the floor, or that somebody had dropped something, or it sounded like it was a very odd noise. To me, like, it would almost be like the sound of like a bunch of rocks in a quarry or something being dropped. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Kind of a heavy scraping thud kind of sound.
They're tunneling under Topeka.
Maybe.
Well, Gradient in the chat room says here around Bentonville. I'm not sure where that is. They happened all the time, and they figured out it was carving out. Walmart were carving out some bunkers. Who told you that? Dabu? Walmart been building bunkers, boys. Dabu been on that again.
I don't know about all that. I don't know about all that, man. But it was very interesting. I don't know what to. Right now, I'm not going to totally lean on Mystery Boom. I'm still open to the possibility that it may have been thunder, like cloud to cloud lightning. But we didn't hear any other thunder or anything since then. And we actually had heavier rain and kind of like heavier shower activity move in, and it wasn't producing any thunder. So, I don't know.
Gradient's just told me he was joking, by the way. You see? I just thought Dabu had been at it again. Did you know Dabu had turned into a weatherman, Scott?
Oh, my Lord. Really?
That's what I've heard.
I mean, he's got to pay the bills somehow, guys.
Very good. Very well observed, Joe. Very well observed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Far more
It's always the end of the world for AMTV.
Oh, always. Black pill. Bleak pill,
God, man, every day. This is it. Today's the day.
Telling you,
it's over.
Fear porn sells. Wow. It's absolutely... It is like manna from click heaven when you tell people the world's going to end, folks. It is.
Black pill to pay the bills.
Black pill to pay the bills. Absolutely. Underground cities. Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, there could be, we've had that whole DARPA push with the subterranean challenge and things,
We've had a lot of earthquakes happening in Kansas here pretty recently.
Yeah.
So, like quite a bit of activity. There's been, I'll have to look, I'll pull up some information on it here in a little bit, but,
have you felt any, Scott?
I haven't felt any since the one that happened, I think it was about 2 years ago. There was a 4.6 that happened in Oklahoma, and we felt it all the way up here. It was early in the morning, and I was actually about to go to bed, because I'm a night owl, and it was early in the morning, and I was really tired, and I was just kind of sitting there, and I looked over and I noticed my microphone, my mic boom, hey, it was wobbling, it was going side to side, and I was like, what? And then I sat still for a second, and I noticed I was wobbling, I was moving, and I was like, oh, wow. God. I was like, is that an earthquake? I was like, holy crap. I think it's an earthquake. And then sure enough, like, I checked the USGS. They said a 4.6 just happened in Oklahoma. And I was like, wow, I felt an earthquake. It was the first and only earthquake I ever, actually, I take this back. I think I didn't feel it, but there was one that occurred before, and I didn't feel it. We didn't feel it, but we noticed that the light fixture above our table in the dining area was kind of swaying a little bit,
Yeah.
and the door on our shed had popped open, and we found out that there was an earthquake, but we didn't like necessarily feel it. We just noticed kind of like that there was things kind of moving and stuff. But that one that happened, that 4.6, I literally felt it, and I was like, wow. And our buddy Ken Webb, he was much closer to the epicenter, and he said it felt like something that he said it was a big enough earthquake and had enough shaking that it felt like something that they would experience in California. And I was like, wow. Yeah.
Well, Nana in the chat room, she's one of many that are fascinated by the weird noises that we've had in recent years. And it made me think to this story here from Nick Redfern the other day, the high strangeness surrounding sound and weird noises. So it says
Nice.
infrasound is an extremely low frequency sound, one which is significantly lower than 20 hertz, which is the typical extreme of human hearing. Now, a number of animals use infrasound as a means to communicate with each other, and the long list includes giraffes, whales, and elephants. It's a form of communication in the animal kingdom that can be highly effective for miles, even in excess of 100 miles. Now, there is another important aspect of infrasound. When it is directed at humans, it can provoke a wealth of unsettling physical and psychological sensations, as well as hallucinations on both the audible and visual kind. So it says mysteriously snuffed out candles, weird sensations, and shivers down the spine may not be due to the presence of ghosts in a haunted house, but to very low frequency sound that is inaudible to humans, reported the Associated Press in September 2003. It goes on to say British scientists have shown in a controlled experiment that the extreme bass sound known as infrasound produces a range of bizarre effects in people, including anxiety, extreme sorrow, and the chills, supporting popular suggestions of a link between infrasound and strange sensations. Some scientists have suggested that this level of sound may be present at some allegedly haunted sites, and so cause people to have odd sensations that they attribute to a ghost. Our findings support these ideas, added Professor Richard Wiseman. Not very open-minded, but he's a wise man, he says. A psychologist working at the University of Hertfordshire in the UK. So moving on from ghosts, let's take a look at Bigfoot. There are far more than a few reports on record where witnesses in close proximity to Bigfoot have reported feeling inexplicably terrified, nauseous, confused, disorientated, dizzy, lightheaded, and physically unable to move. They smoked too much weed. That's what that is. That sounds like a whitey. Sounds like you're about to flake out, man. Just take a seat.
DMT.
Yeah, take a seat, have a drink of water, and puff, puff, pass. Just you miss the next round, okay? Even before, I mean, I've felt that way in Whistle's house a couple of times, and it was nothing to do with Bigfoot. Even before they have seen the creature. This may not be due to sheer terror, and the pounding flood of massive amounts of adrenaline coursing through the bloodstream. The culprit may be infrasound, specifically controlled and targeted on the witnesses by the Bigfoot creatures themselves. Wow. Sasquatch expert Scott Carpenter. I love that, a Sasquatch expert.
Yeah.
I know. He said
Above
of his
top
very
secret.
own encounter with the Bigfoot, I am not an acoustic expert or a scientist. My findings are based on observation and common sense. I think that I was under the influence of infrasound during my encounter with the Bigfoot on April the 30th, 2010. The Bigfoot manipulated my perception and sanitized my memory. How do you remember it was that date then? How
How do you know that it was sanitized if it was sanitized?
Now, on to alien life forms. Sightings of UFOs in the skies of our planet have been reported for decades, and perhaps even for hundreds and maybe thousands of years. But what about the sound of a UFO? Interestingly, there are numerous accounts on record where UFOs have reportedly emitted deep, resonating humming sounds that seemed to exert some form of both physical and mental influence over the witnesses. Not only that, such encounters have also left eyewitnesses feeling distinctly ill and disorientated.
You know what's funny about that, Kev? After we heard the mystery boom today, I literally was joking around and I said, I was like, watch that be a UFO that was like hurtling through the clouds. That's exactly what I said.
That's what it was, Scott. I'm telling you, you're on it, man. It was on the night of August 20th, 1957, when a guard was standing watch near a U.S. Navy Air Force aircraft that had crashed near Quilino, Argentina. Suddenly, he heard an eerie hum, and he was amazed to see above him a large, seemingly metallic disc-shaped UFO. In stark terror, he attempted to draw his pistol, but with the humming sound becoming deeper and deeper, he found himself unable to do so, and was certain that his very self-will was under extreme threat. Most fascinating of all, the guard then had an overwhelming sensation that his mind was being flooded with information from an intelligence aboard the UFO that revolved around mankind's misuse of atomic energy, something that he perceived was of great concern to those in the craft. We'll be right back. Yes, there we go.
Notice how, yep, there it is again, that misuse of nuclear energy now all of a sudden.
I definitely think there is some kind of correlation between our use of, or our playing about with nukes and splitting the atom and these things turning up. And it's just an opinion. And there's movies out there about it, like UFOs and nukes. Quite a good documentary. I don't know.
I've got a fun fact for you guys. Did you know that film producers and movie studios employ infrasound in horror movies to increase the viewers' feeling?
Is that right?
Being terrified and unease.
Can they start doing it again? Because horror films nowadays are just pants. They're poo.
Well, you know, you kind of run through all the tricks, and then you know, you kind of run out of stuff to.
Give me the old vampire movies, dude. They were good.
Kev, we were talking about that today. I was watching a program. It was a guy that was going to Dracula's castle.
Oh, nice.
And the thing is, I said to June, I said, can you remember the old vampire films when they would go through the woods at night in this black, do you know what I mean, coach thing, and that gave me the heebie-jeebies, that kind of film.
Yes,
do you know what I mean? But
Johnny.
You don't see that anymore.
Remember the Hammer House of Horrors, John?
Oh, I loved it.
Peter Cushing's. Oh, man. Those were the horror days. Yeah, I like myself. I like actually B horror movies because I find that they don't rely so much on the special effects. They've got better storylines.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you too. I like the B, the B horror films. They do have to depend more on storytelling, but not only that, because they don't have so much of a budget, you don't get all of this like overly fake looking CGI, and they have to rely on more practical effects. And in my opinion, I think practical effects look more realistic and are far more convincing than CGI, because you're looking at some kind of like an actual physical thing, not a computer generated thing, right? So when you have a monster that's created in CGI, it diminishes your suspension of disbelief, because you're like, oh, well, that's just a computer generated monster. But when it's a practical effect, like a guy in a mask or something, and that mask is done incredibly detailed, like our friend John Fuller does, right? His sculptures and stuff that he makes and his masks that he makes, to me, that just seems a lot more realistic, and it seems a lot more convincing, because it's a physical object, right? It's something that's actually being filmed, and it just blends in much better, I think, with the filming and stuff. So yeah, I prefer practical effects, and I like that B horror, those B horror films. They're the ones I like.
Shout out to Ryan Gable playing Fallout right now. Yeah, he's playing Fallout, listening to the show. I think he's trying to twist my arm to go on some other radio show after him.
That's what it sounds like, huh?
It does sound like that, yeah. You know me, I hate being on radio, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
I hate it.
Mhm.
Shut up, you guys.
And shout out to the Paranormal Portal. Brent Thomas, he's in the chat.
Excellent. Remember, folks, head on over to see Brent right after this show finishes. Where's the vault? Get ready to come back to the mothership at TFR. So you could listen to Brent over on TFR, or I believe Brent also simulcasts on his YouTube channel as well. I'll try and get a link for that during this segment. But here we go, Scott. Get the Wookiee ready. We're going back to TFR.
He is ready to drop some infrasound.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Final segment of today's absolutely info-packed, jamming,
What happened to the time, man?
ball-burning, ring-stinging Freaky Friday.
Yeah, what happened to the time? It seems like time just really accelerated on that.
It has. It always does on a Friday night.
Well,
from
during the
about,
break,
7 to 10 Eastern.
Scotty, tell people what Brent's got lined up for today on the Paranormal Portal.
I don't know what Brent's got lined up.
I thought you said he was going to drop some. I thought you said he was going to drop some infrasound, dude.
No. But you know what? It doesn't matter what Brent has lined up on the Paranormal. No matter what it is, it's absolutely brilliant, and I know that it's going to be fantastic. And if you think that, the Woo crew here likes to turn up the Woo dial to 10, Brent Thomas and the Paranormal Portal are going to break the dial. They're just going to rip that thing right off there. And so yeah, everyone.
I've just dropped the link.
Friday,
links in there, Scott. There we go.
Yeah, after Freaky Friday, you guys need to go check out Brent and the Paranormal Portal, because we're amateurs. We're amateurs when it comes to him. Getting into the paranormal woo.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time. And Joe, Whistles, Scotty, where now? Are we going deep woo, or are we going shadow people? Are we going like paranormal woo? Are we opening up the phones?
I was going to say, I have a friend. I'm going to try to convince her to call in sometime.
Very good.
She's not. I don't think she's too comfortable with it right now, but I'll get her to do it. But man, what she has been telling me over Facebook, she's got quite a few wild shadow people experiences to get into, and it's some wild stuff, man. And remember Shadow Dude, how there was that one shadow sighting in there where it looked like a dude had a cloak on or hoodie or something like that?
Hoodie. Yeah, I remember the hoodie, Scott.
Yeah. She has had many experiences with hooded. She calls them hooded shadow figures. And she's even classified different shadow entities. Like, she calls the ones with the hoods the nefarious ones, or the bad ones.
I think anything that's coming out of a portal and looks black and shadowy there's none of them good. That's just my own opinion. I don't know. Maybe there are good ones. I don't know.
So if I can get her to call in sometime, I think that will be an excellent. It'll just take the woo to the next level. So.
Well, Nana in the chat room says you have to be open to the woo. I want that in a t-shirt. That sounds pretty cool. I like that, definitely. Any weird and wonderful paranormal stuff going on with you, Whistles? We've not spoke to you in a while. Any ooga boogas?
Nothing, Kev.
No?
I mean, there's not many things happen up here, to be honest with you.
Right, it's Fife. It's like the bumhole of Earth.
Oh, Kev, really, honestly, there's just nothing here.
Nah, man, we were talking about haunted locations in Scotland not long ago. There was a few popped up in Fife, wasn't there, guys? Because I kept on, referring to the Kingdom of the Whistler, So there is some good...
There is a few, there's a few castles up here, Kev.
I think any castle's going to have something attached to it,
Yeah. Falklands Castle, we went to visit it, but it was shut Do you know what I mean? Because the family actually still live in the castle, but they open it up
Got you.
between March and I think it's September or something.
It's like Glam's castle as well. All the castles, really. They've all got things attached to them. They've got white ladies or grey ladies or green ladies. And then there was a story I was reading out. It was about a road in Skye. I think it's called the Skiach or something. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but reports of people that have seen ghost cars, right? Now, that was just a random story. It was only maybe 5 or 6 lines I read, Johnny, about these haunted locations in Scotland. And you know my brother, he does the delivery driving, stuff like that. Well, he nearly fell off the chair. Because I don't know what it is with Kenny, but he's open to this kind of thing. It seems to, like, he sees more than your average person. And, like, Ange, she's open to this. There's people that do see more than others.
Yeah.
And the reason he nearly fell off the chair was because when he was delivering in Skye one day, he was on that road. And unbeknown to him, he didn't know any of the lore, any of the kind of history of it. But he's driving along, and there's an old car. You know Kenny, he's a car buff. He loves his cars. So he recognised an old car right away in the lay-by as they were driving towards it, and then the lights came on in it. Only problem being, as he passed it, there was nobody sat in it. And then what's even worse is he looks in the rear view mirror, and this car starts reversing down the road after him, and then gone.
Wow.
And he didn't tell anyone, because who's going to believe that? But then when he heard that this is something that people have witnessed before, that's when he kind of like just broke down and told my mum everything that's been going on with them, from shadow dudes to this going on. And I don't know, Joe, are some people more tuned? Are they on that?
I think so, to an extent. Absolutely. It's kind of like having filters on, you know, like being able to see things, or you're able to receive at the right frequency.
Yeah. It's like if you've got 4 people.
It's like, Kev, when we were talking about like thunder, and when there's going to be thunder and lightning, do you know what I mean? Like the hairs in my arms go up. I can actually feel the electricity. But June, she's like that. No, I don't feel anything, but I can feel it all around me. Do you know what I mean?
That's like some people that can smell snow when it's coming. I know a few people that say that they can smell the snow in the air. I don't rubbish it, because it's obviously something they're experiencing. Who the hell's going to make up something ridiculous like that? Okay, so you smell snow. But yeah, it must be something to do with the atmospherics, the pressure, something, Scott.
Yeah, I'm one of those people. Like, I can smell when rain's coming.
There you go.
Smell when it's snow.
You're half cat.
You could, yeah, I probably am. You can definitely feel when the air is electrified when a storm is moving in, especially the kind of storms we get here in Kansas. There is an absolute energy in the air, like on a day that we're supposed to have like super severe weather and tornadoes. You can just tell. You just know you're just sitting in an air mass that is absolutely loaded with energy, that is ready to release in some fashion, right? What was that, Joe?
You see, Joe was away getting coffee at the start of the show when we brought that clown story up. We've been there, Joe, but we haven't got into it, so we can get into it.
What's interesting about said is that that one event sparked off an unbelievable rash of copycat activity, and it doesn't take much. That's why I said, Kev, you have a lot of power. You wield an immense amount of power now, just by the simple fact that you have different masks, different personalities you can now take full advantage of. You can be that Wrinkles the Clown. You know? That's right. For a small fee, I'll come to your house and scare the shite out of your kid and scare him straight into being good.
See what I'm saying?
For a small fee. That's right. You could be like like Kev the Zombie or something like that.
I fit in with the locals, dude. I feel one of the locals
Yeah, actually,
now.
yeah, you kind of blend in. You'd be more of one of the crowd.
Yeah. I think John's masks are scarier than the clown masks, to be honest with you.
I do too. They definitely have a lot more flair.
So what's this? Are we all gonna be watching the documentary called Wrinkles the Clown? And it examines the real life internet phenomenon of parents hiring a creepy clown to scare their children straight. Do people actually do that?
They did. It's a true story.
Wow.
That's what I'm saying.
That's like not very good. I don't think that's good parenting. Not that I'm a perfect parent, but
But it's down in Naples, Florida, right? Naples, Florida is a very high income area. So what better way to do that with these snooty kids, than to bring in good old Wrinkles? And Wrinkles was just a phone call away. You just call Wrinkles, he'd come on over, and he'd basically just stalk them until they came correct.
I mean, is it really any different than, say, like what a lot of Mexican families do, and they tell their kid that if they don't behave, they're gonna put them in the kukui room, right?
Yeah, same difference. Same difference. You're just scaring them straight.
Yeah, basically.
You're
I think this is a wee bit more than just scaring them.
Yeah, it is kind of over the top a
Yeah.
little bit. Don't you think? You're kind of traumatizing your kid. Well, if they didn't have a fear of clowns before, well, they sure as hell have one now, because their parents have hired a clown to stalk them and terrorize them.
what have you found now, Joe?
Joe.
My cat has just offended me.
Hang on a minute. Oh, look at that, eh? Unfortunately, I can't look at your story, Joe. I've been locked
It's the
out
New
by
York
the
Daily
EU.
News. Come on.
It's okay. The EU have locked me out. I'm not allowed to see that. That stuff will poison my authoritative mindset. I need to go to reputable news organizations, Joe. I can't be looking at this tripe from America.
Oh, well, let me, cat lover who jumped into Bronx Zoo lion habitat roars into bizarre rap as police try to find her. So this is a very interesting woman who's extremely narcissistic and is like one of these social media people. Maya Autry says is showing her claws. The wild-eyed cat lover being sought by police for climbing inside the African lion exhibit at the Bronx Zoo posted a video on her Instagram account Friday in an apparent taunt to the authorities. In the bizarre clip posted at 9 a.m., the 32-year-old dreadlock diva is seen rapping and gyrating on a carpet, shouting proudly, "It will take more than ISIS to defeat me. This is Brooklyn, N-word. I am possessed." She spouts in her rambling rap, which is cheered on by someone recording her. This is the shite you never see. She's rapping and doing push-ups at the same time. Autry wrote as she posted the clip, quote, "My name is Queen Empress Maya Larry Israelite. And don't you MFer forget it."
Wow.
Now, Autry won't be forgotten by the NYPD, who's still trying to locate and question her. The woman was recorded jumping into an African lion exhibit at the Bronx Zoo on Sunday and doing a little dance in front of one of the kings of the jungle, which just stared at her confused as Autry shook her booty by a small moat inside the enclosure.
Ooh,
She said. She said this, Scotty. "I literally went into his habitat, and he didn't growl or go into attack mode. Why? Even animals know you're acting out of love and fearlessness. I entered his home in peace, and he let me leave in peace. Shalom."
Shalom.
Wiki.
I'm going to say probably the only reason she wasn't lion food is they probably just fed the lions right before she jumped in. Usually you hear of these cases of people jumping into a lion enclosure. Doesn't end so well.
No.
Does not end very well.
Same as when you go running into a camel enclosure. That doesn't end so well either. we had a story about that recently too.
Yeah, I think I personally think the lions were just fed. I think they were just fed. They had a nice full belly. They were pretty content. They were nice and content, and she just got super lucky that she was able to jump in there and make it out alive. What do you think, Joe?
When I seen her doing that, Scott, honestly, I mean, the lion's only about maybe 12 feet away from her. It could take her at any time, and I'm saying, when is this going to happen? I was just waiting on it with a big giant, do you know what I mean? Just taking her head first. No, it didn't move. Oh, wow.
John Fuller,
it must have been just fed.
John Fuller, I absolutely love you, dude. I need to find a platform that is going to allow you and your friend, the genius that created the best prop ever for a show or two that we've done on here. I need to think where I can actually host this show. Will D Live allow it? They kicked off Mr. Metaker, and what I've got planned is even worse than Mr. Metaker. Would Periscope allow it? Maybe. Look at Joe's face at the mere thought of what John Fuller dropped in the chat room there. I know. Who knows? But I'll figure something out. I need to get this show happening. It's going to be awesome. Awesome.
Franken, one of those.
Yes. Franken, Vajija Gangam Badoo. You know it. Yeah. Well, we're almost out of time, guys. And before we forget again, Brent Thomas, Paranormal Portal. Don't ask you to check it out. I insist you check that out. If you like some of the stuff,
to check it out.
I don't order people, but I kind of lightly insist. Lightly. We provide, the audience decides, and we're providing a link to the Paranormal Portal.
At least you treat other people that way. Hashtag me too.
Oh, yeah. What? What are you trying to say, Joe? What are you trying to say? Come on, man. I've had a long week.
I know.
I've had a long week from witches and sex candles to alien probes of a very disturbing nature.
How could you not respect a show that has stuff that happens like that?
Only on the Kev Baker show. Scott
Only
Lopez
on the Kev Baker show.
said at the start of the show, only on the Kev Baker show is it like quite normal to say, it's okay, I kicked off the week with like sex candles and sex magic and, then got into a bit of, pretty much. Good show, though. If anyone missed that one, check out the show with Tia. It's in the archive over at TFR, or you can catch it here on YouTube. Very interesting. Very, very controversial as well, it would seem. Yet another social media war ensued. Been a big week, Joe. Been a good week on KBS, man. You take a week off and see what happens, Joe.
I know. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yep. So where now, brown cow? Brown chicken, brown cow. Everyone's just sitting looking at me as if.
All right, so here we go. So I got this one thing about let's you know how I like quantum, especially how it relates to manufacturing and kind of that advancement of technology.
Yeah.
So Phys.org has a next generation single photon source for quantum information science. It says over the last 2 decades, tremendous advances have been made in the field of quantum information science. And we say that because, you've got a lot of a need for quantum programmers. And it's kind of hard when the field itself is just now coming into being. So there really isn't any to speak of, nor is there really any courses set up for it yet, because it's still kind of in the experimental slant deployment phase. So, and I mean like extreme infancy, but there's certainly a need for this stuff, and at least for the experience in it. So anybody like with children that have I guess you could say a propensity or an interest in coding or in going down that road, this would be something that you'd want to get them into. doing websites and everything is great, but that's not where the money is. The money's in this stuff.
Machine
And
learning. Machine learning is the
machine
big
learning,
money.
mechatronics, and especially like the quantum stuff. If you can get into anything quantum, especially quantum coding, oh, holy smoke!
Yeah, there's actually a pretty big need right now for people to create, like you said, like quantum coding, and they really need people with the skill set to try and create basically operating systems.
Yeah,
and,
user interfaces with these.
Yeah,
things,
user interfaces.
There are none.
So, yeah,
and I'm sure it's quite tedious a process. It's not as simple as clicking an icon on your screen. And
yeah, you're not just going over there and loading windows on
exactly
on a
right. Exactly right. So it's probably very convoluted, and there's no little to no user interface.
BW in the chat makes a good point. A lot of the quantum programming might well be done by the AI.
Could very well be.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be. But in the meantime, even developing that AI, you're going to need coders, especially ones that are those that have a real propensity to math, a lot of strong things.
Viral save your life prank. Madness see chat link.
Viral save your life prank. I'll look for the link. On you go, Joe. Sorry about that, man.
Oh yes. No, but I mean, I think that if you have children like that, that's the route you want them to go. That or some sort of maintenance. If you don't want to get into that type of thing where you're like quantum engineering and things like that, then you get into some sort of maintenance role where you're maintaining these machines and maintaining these robots. That that's the way of these industrial mechanics are going to be the only ones left. In a manufacturing sense. So that's kind of where you want to go. And it's interesting because there's such a shortfall industry-wide with mechanics. Average age of mechanics in New England is 58 years old for industrial mechanics. They're a dying breed. Everybody said, oh, well, we got to go to school and we got to learn this and we got to have coders. Yeah, but nobody's there to fix the machines now. So it's a huge, huge shortfall. These are things that, you can think about when you talk about this technology. It doesn't necessarily eliminate all opportunity. It does create opportunity. It just creates opportunity in new paths, and that's one of the emerging paths.
Yeah, it just becomes a different sector that needs to be filled,
Yep.
Or a new sector, I should say.
So here's this one quickly before we go then. Warning over a potentially lethal saved your life prank. So it says a woman has spoken out to warn about a potentially lethal prank after she came within seconds of seriously injuring or even killing a young boy. Mum of two, Jen Frail, 32, said she had to slam her brakes on as she drove down a busy road when a group of young boys pulled what was a prank called it was a prank called Tell Your Mum I Saved Your Life. Jen, who had her daughter and son Logan in the car, was left terrified after a gang of around 10 school children pushed a boy into the path of a car and then pulled him back out of the road seconds later. Seriously? When she confronted them...
Wow, talk about jokes gone wrong if that ever goes wrong, right?
Only needs to go wrong once and somebody's not coming home that day.
That's it, man. And wow.
And the poor people in the car.
We did that as kids, Kev, and I know it sounds ridiculous, but we did actually do that as kids with the buses.
Oh, that's craziness, man, isn't it? Wow. So it says when she confronted them, they were wetting themselves laughing, says the Liverpool Echo. Jen said, Logan asked me what had just happened, and I can't believe I have to explain to him what happened. And that is not a good thing to push people into the road. Wow.
No.
Dang.
But kids do stupid things, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of those things they do. I mean, I hate to say it, what could you say? It's a failure of parenting. No, the best parents in the world can't have eyes on their kids 24/7 as much as we'd like to, and kids do stupid things.
Go back to the Tide Pods.
I mean, there always are, Kev. If it's not Tide Pods, it's lighting bags of shit on fire and throwing it on people's porches. There's always something.
And you find that a lot of these pranks and a lot of these dangerous things that kids are doing, it gets regurgitated over the generations, right? Like Whistle said, they probably, this kind of thing has been happening probably for a long time, and then somehow it gets, brought back up to this, the newer generation somehow starts doing it.
Can't you see it now? Can you see it now playing out? Like 100 years ago. Hey, come on, Jeb, let's go light this bag of shit on fire. Throw it on the porch of, Ned Flanders. And then, 200 years later.
It's like
come now, George, let us goeth to the porch to lighteth the baggeth of shit on fire. I can just see it.
Remember, Kev, you brought up the story where it said some kid was in the hospital because of where they asked what's the capital of Thailand, and then they go Bangkok, and they punch them in the nuts.
They punch you in the gonads, yeah.
That kind of thing has been around
as old can be.
We're out of time, boys. Remember, stay tuned. Coming up right after Freaky Friday, Brent Thomas, Paranormal Portal. He will get into the deep woo. Can you handle Brent's woo? If you can, stay tuned. We'll be back tomorrow on the live stream. Wherever you are, make it TFR. And then he touched that dial.
Touch that dial.
Yeah!
Whistles, man. You need to be quick. You need to be quick with the didn't he touch that dial.
That's all right. He's kind of high, though.
It's all this copyrighted music, though. We need to get that copyrighted music out of there. It needs to go.
Mate.
It needs to go. The copyrighted music, I need to kill it dead.
All I know is I need to get some pseudo seizures and shit so I can get on with whatever you're having.
So the Logos in the chat room said nobody did Tide Pods. Popeye said so. I watched videos of people eating Tide Pods.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, it was manufactured. Sorry, dude.
Yeah. It was all just fake.
No, what is that? That's that fucking. Oh fuck it! People ate Tide Pods. Fuck that.
Not for me, thanks.
No.
Unless you put a little bit of sugar on it, maybe.
No.
No. Wash it down with a cup of Roundup or something like that.
Dude, soap is soap, no matter how you cut it, right?
Exactly, dude. But
folks, then that's to say, was my mom wrong for putting the soap in my mouth when I was bad?
In Scotland, that's not a thing.
Your mom did that.
Oh yeah.
See, in Scotland, it's
my
part of
mom
our language.
threatened me with it, but she never done it.
Part
My
of our
dad,
language up
there was
here.
There was a shit that they sold in a bottle. It's called Thumb, right? And it was for kids that bit their nails. I bit my nails, so my dad bought that shit, and it tastes like fucking. It had like cayenne pepper in it and all sorts of shit, and it's super bitter. It tastes like fucking paint, right? Because it was kind of.
Where is all the weird
of using
woo?
it to help me with my fucking nails, if I had said something, he would take it and fucking paint my tongue with it. And oh man, that shit was so fucking nasty. Oh god, I'm gonna break out the thumb. Oh shit, no, not the thumb, no. Yeah.
Joe triggering my snowflake algorithm with all his F-bombs right at the very end.
Yeah,
Thank you, Joe.
And still rides me about biting my nails, so yeah, it's fun. Every day.
Right,
yeah.
Somebody was asking, where's all the weird woo? Right now, it's going to be happening over on Brent Thomas's Paranormal Portal. Definitely the place to go for some weird woo, I would imagine. Yeah. That'll take you into the weird, the wonderful. I'll drop a link to his channel right here before we go. And Whistles, it's been absolutely splendiferous having you back.
Oh, Whistles, great, man. Mate. Always a pleasure.
Yes.
Been good, guys.
In our golden ratio setup here, the energy that's flowing kept you with us for the full show.
Kev, I got to tell you, man, that was interestingly enough, it's just like you said. You see it.
Now you see it, you can't unsee it, right? You go from
can't unsee it, right.
and you go to the spiral, and
Yep.
You see, you like that?
I do. I like it.
You know, people pointing out in the chat, which is actually pretty funny. You know, Joe's sitting here talking about having his mouth washed out was
dropping
so
F-bombs while
yeah,
doing it.
and he just dropped like so many F-bombs in like a very, very concentrated
Well,
period of time.
it's part of the shtick of having
Yes, that's okay.
Indeed, indeed. And what I'm going to do is, before we go, guys, we're going to take a little dip of the toe into the paranormal portal in about 30 seconds time, just to give people a little taste. And then we will,
give them a taste.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it's great that we have Brent in here, the paranormal portal. He drops into the chat. And any of the shows over on TFR, you know, especially paranormal portal, I think if you're into Freaky Friday, it's a natural kind of fit, right? You're going to like Brent Thomas, and you're going to like the kind of stories that are covered on there. So if you are still wide awake, you know, I don't know where you are in the world. Maybe it's still daytime. Maybe, you know, who knows? But Paranormal Portal, that will continue the woo right over there. Look at the videos, see if it's up live yet. There we go. Imaginary friends and other paranormal oddities. Come on, folks. He's only got 20 in there. I want you to crash Brent's chat. I'm going to drop a link to this right now in the chat here. And we're going to be heading off anyway, so you're not going to be missing anything here. But let's
head on over to Brent and support him.
Let's freak Brent out. He's gonna wonder what the heck's going on in my chat room in a moment. So I'm gonna tell him, Paranormal Portal, we have just told everyone to crash your stream. Have a good one, brother. So yeah, carry on over there.
That almost sounds nefarious, Kev. Like you're sending a botnet to crash his stream.
Or you come on now, guys. Come on. I'm trying to send some woo-woo juju over to Brent. That's what it is. See?
LOL.
LOL. So Joe, tomorrow, yes?
Mañana, my friend. Mañana.
Yes, we'll get the silly heads on. We'll get like into really weird and crazy stuff tomorrow. Johnny, one weekend, I hope you're awake enough to come on the weekend madness.
Oh, Johnny, it is
Hanger 18ish.
Special time.
It's very Hanger 18ish.
The weekends are an entirely different beast, my friend.
Yeah, there we go. We've already got Lisa. Imagine. Lisa's already in over there. We've got Brian in over there. Thank you, folks. Obviously, they can't hear me, but head on over there. Show Brent some love. Let's get his subscriber count up. 4,500 almost. Come on, let's bump up. There was a couple of hundred people in here. Yeah.
Yeah, he deserves way more, you know, than what he's got.
I don't know.
Did he hear you there, Scott? He was laughing at you.
Thank you guys all for coming into the chat, and all of those of you in the TFR chat room. Great to see you guys. Quite a few of you are still in there, but
he's got a cool studio. Look at that, dude. That's like real studio stuff going on, man.
His setup is really, it totally. He's got the paranormal woo vibe going on big time.
He sure does, man.
I see a lot of the KBS members have filtered in over there. That is awesome. So for another week, KBS Freaky Friday, it goes on its weekend hiatus, but I don't, because tomorrow we're back on the Weekend Woo live stream where things get really, really weird, bizarre. Joe's got that look on his face as if he's got lots of shenanigans planned for it. And Sunday, remember Sunday is going to be the members only chat stream during the afternoon, early evening in the UK. We're going to switch the time slightly this week. I might even do a random stream tomorrow. You know how I hate streaming so much.
Oh, I know how you hate it.
But shut up, Joe. But you never know. There might be something going on that I think is worthy of your time and your attention. And if so, I will do that. Before I go, let me remind everyone, if you want to continue this kind of chat room 24/7, then you head on over to Discord, where we've got the KBS server. And I know Joe, he's still trying to figure out how to get logged in to Discord, but it's already taking shape. There's people in there talking all hours of the day. So many links, so many stories that I can't possibly get through them all. But all you have to do to join that, it's totally free. You just email me at kbsdiscord@protonmail.com. That's kbsdiscord@protonmail.com. I send you an invite. It's valid for 24 hours. Hey, I get it. Some people are busy. If it runs out, just email me again. It's no biggie. And then you'll be in there with near enough everyone that I can see in the chat room right now. You got Polly. He's one of the main ones in there. Jason, he hangs out. So many people hanging out in there. Trying to get Joe in there more often. Whistles, I am quite happy to bring you into the disco as well. 24/7, you can have your own room. We can even set up the Whistler's room, the whistle stop, so you and all your groupies can hang out. Scott, he's an admin. You're like a boss in the server, and we need to get you in there more, man.
Yeah,
I do.
I'll figure it out, Kev. I'll kind of, I don't know. We'll figure it out.
It's good, Joe. Don't be a dinosaur. Try something new, man. Come on.
Why, you crazy young whippersnappers?
We're crazy as hell.
The future is now, old man.
So yes, I think that's it. I think that's us out of here, guys and girls and he's and she's and it's and these. So until tomorrow, we'll be back with the weekend stream where shit gets really real. Until then, let me play you out with some of Joe's favorite music.
Oh, I just dig it.
Come on, Joe, you love that music, man. Joe, I got complaints. I got emails complaining about your music during the week. Come on, Joe. Or do you want this one then? See, the boys like that. We're out of here, folks. We're done. We're out of here.
The Whistlers is very inspiring. Very inspiring.
Come on, Whistle. Shake it, man.
Yeah, get it. Look at that. You see what I'm saying? That's inspiring.
Look at Scotty Lopez loving it.
Damn.